Hello and welcome to a very special bit of Shut Up and Stay Inside. Today we have Mothership in space. No one can hear you. Shut up, which is my way of saying shut up and sit down. We are joined by some incredibly exciting people here. We have Pip, Tom, and Ava.
Hi.
Hello.
In my world, the holy trinity of fun. I don't think you're muted. I think people can hear you, but we'll find out in a few seconds whether or not people can hear you, whether or not the audio is okay, and whether or not everything else is okay, etc. So,
is everything okay?
This is Mothership. Now, Mothership is a very cool little RPG that comes in both PDF and little booklet form, and really is a little booklet. This is the player's guide, and it's also, I discovered, basically the guide for everything. It's not just the player's handbook, it's just everything, which made me kind of go, because I think I'm faintly nervous about the idea of running an RPG and having some sort of giant book in front of me or selection of books telling me how to be good at it, running it, would probably make me feel less anxious, which is probably why the RPG, that's how the business works, I guess, to be honest. It's like, buy books. Anyway, I've done a lot of research, done a lot of stuff. I've used a lot of amazing resources which I found online. There's a Discord for Mothership, which is full of people creating their own custom stuff, custom bits and bobs. I've been pulling some useful stuff from there. I've been reading a lot of stuff, and I want to give a shout out to that community. I think some people from it might be watching some of it today, and I hope you like what we do with it. It seemed like a really lovely bunch, really creative bunch. And I am, I'm slightly terrified. Haven't done this since I was about 13, and I wasn't very good at it back then, so we're going to see how we get on in Mothership. Now, first of all, we're going to do a little bit of character creation. Now, character creation in this is pretty simple. Now, Tom already has a character, I believe, because he's a
Yes.
Billy Keno. He loves it.
Yeah.
He loves the cinema.
My character. So I rolled a load of dice. I basically did the entire character completely randomly by rolling a dice for each category and seeing what happened. So my character is Juice Springsteen, born in the US of space. Quite strong, well, not very strong, not very fast, quite clever, also not very good at fighting, but he is a Marine. So we'll see how that goes in terms of Juice Springsteen's character arc. I'm aware that in this game, Juice might not be long for this world, and that's okay. I already don't like him, so...
Wow, okay, well, I mean, I don't know, it's interesting, like, I think this is supposed to be quite a mean game. We'll have to see how I end up playing it, frankly. So, Ava, I will ping to you a little PDF link so you can make your little character as we go along, and I will just roll some dice and we will make some things happen. And it's going to be, frankly, magical.
I've actually got like a pen and paper in front of me, literally. Do I need to do it on the PDF so that you can
No, we can do it on...
Can I just...
We can do it on a pen and a paper.
Yeah.
What a treat. Do 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 do.
Sugar babes are old and that is fine. What a feeling, sugar babes. We haven't explained to the chat.
Well, we haven't explained Sugar Babes, the chat.
Why did we start talking about the Sugar Babes?
Because Pip's here, I think.
Oh yeah, of course.
It was because Matt tried to link us to a soundscape kind of generator and I couldn't get it to work, so I just started listening to old Sugar Babes CDs instead, and and it really spiraled from there, really.
Yeah.
The mental image of you saying I then put on some Sugar Babe CDs is like, well, it's not working, and you get out your like big CD player, like old mid 2000s CD player, press it on the table. Here we go. Get the tiny little like felt earphones on, like doo doo doo.
Like these little tinny noises, as I'm like walking down the street,
Okay, so part of my little thing I have set up today is I have a little magic window, and my magic window allows me to roll fictional dice into the ether of the stream. This is a wonderful app called Sophie's Dice, which is somebody I've been following and giving some cash to on Patreon over the past few years. I think. If I haven't, sorry. I think I have at some point. Anyway, they're brilliant, and they made this wonderful app that basically lets you do all sorts of crazy things with dice. I definitely recommend checking it out. I'm actually using it incredibly conservatively here. It allows you to throw hundreds of dice at the same time. It has an incredible quantity of ridiculous dice you can use, just odd shapes and odd ideas. It has exploding dice. It has all sorts of good stuff. It's really, really quite wonderful. So I just wanted to give this a little bit of a plug. There's a link in the chat at the moment. It's a lot of fun. I'm going to be using that because I realised I don't have any D10s. I thought I did. I've got loads of D12s, loads of D6s, don't have any D10s. It's fine. Also, I was going to buy some, but what's the point in buying some when I can just make some exactly as I want and have them exist in a digital realm? So, on that note, I think what we're going to do is we're going to start making some characters. Now, the great thing about this is usually when you're playing an RPG around table, you will all roll, what's it called? You will roll dice of your own. But in this case, if you have dice of your own and you want to roll them at home, you can absolutely do that. But if you don't have dice to hand, you can literally just say, Matt, can you roll some dice for me? And I will just roll your dice into the digital ether. It even has a little box in the corner that tells me what the added up sum is, because I don't like doing maths.
Yeah, I really hate counting. So
yeah, I hate counting as well.
You for that. Yeah.
Exactly. We just do it on a computer and the computer does a count.
No, this is Sesame Street has taught you nothing. Like the
Sesame Street
joy
tells you a
of
lot of lies
counting.
about how much fun counting is.
They do overestimate it a
I
little
love
bit, I'm not
Sesame
going to lie.
Street. Like,
Oh,
I'm
I thought I
100% here
was.
for it.
Oh no, I feel like I thought everyone was having as much fun as I was.
Counting to 12 is not as fun as that little animated pinball thing makes you think.
Okay, well we've
You're not
already
wrong.
diverged. So
So, who would like to go first making a character? In fact, we can do it at the same time. If people have dice, they can do it. We need to roll 6d10. Would you like me to roll you 6d10, Ava? And Pip, would you like to roll 6d10 yourself? It's up to you.
can do.
Yeah, that sounds.
Ava, do you want to go first?
Yeah,
I
sure.
think you can do it at the same time because we can have
Okay.
dice on the screen and dice in your real world.
Yeah.
All right.
I really like the character sheet in Mothership and how it literally shows you how to create a character on the character sheet, which makes my tiny brain sing with joy. It was
Yeah.
great.
It's neat.
What did I get, Matt?
It's
I
neat.
can't see the screen.
So, you've got a 6, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, and a 10. Ooh. Wicked, wicked,
You told me I
wicked.
wouldn't have to do counting.
Speed counting.
Oh no, sorry, we do count them. I'm wrong. I just wanted to prove to you and the people at home that I can read numbers. So you got 34. So strength 34. So you just rolled 60-10 and then go down them in order. So your strength is 34, and then I'm just gonna roll all these again.
I'm gonna do the same on mine. Do you want me to read mine out, or shall I just
You
fill
can-
them in and we can?
How about you fill them in and then you can tell us what you've got afterwards.
Okay.
Sound good? All right. Then speed is 42, Ava.
Ooh, that's fast.
Your intellect is 35. And your combat is 31. Apparently a stat of 30 is about average, but don't worry too much.
Yeah, very,
Next thing you
very
need to
slightly
do-
above average.
Is choose one of the 4 classes. Do you want to be a teamster, who are basically like Ripley from Aliens? They are basically unionist people in space. Scientists, I think you know what a scientist is. Androids, I think you know what an android is. Or Marines, I think you know what they are as well.
I'm going to go with scientist, I think.
All right,
'cause
nice.
Apart from the fact that that means that I need to pretend that I know things, I
Okay.
feel like I'm a good bumbler. Which feels like
Excellent.
a strong archetype, right?
Yeah, excellent. Okay. And then basically you'll see some arrows at the bottom of the columns which will tell you whether your starting stats get altered slightly by your stuff. You should be able to work all that out. And then basically you'll get... Each class has some skills to begin with, which you should be able to... Ah, no, you're not using a sheet. Oh, yeah, I'll tell you what you got. We're really using pen and paper style here. Okay. So as a scientist, you get...
Plus 10 to intellect, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so you have got a thing in
I
front
have
of
got
you.
the paper, yeah.
I thought you just had pen and paper. All right, easy.
No.
Okay.
I meant I had pen and paper printed with a character sheet. I think it would be
That makes a lot more
genuinely
sense.
arsey to show up with just a piece of paper. I'm ready to
Well, I didn't
roleplay.
mind.
Send
I
us
was
pen
just
and
like-
paper.
I did say don't worry about preparing too much, so I get what I deserve, right? So
are
then,
these,
yeah,
like,
you've got.
ghosty number. The grey numbers in the scientist box, are those there? I don't touch them at all. They're just numbers.
They're your
No, you're
default
right.
saves.
Okay.
Yes.
So you don't necessarily, because I think that like you'll get other stuff that changes them, so you don't necessarily need to write them in
Right. Okay.
yet, because they're basically the same.
But they may
number.
change, yeah.
They may
Cool.
change.
And then also you get some skills, and each class has a different number of skill points. Choose some skills, and I think that's all pretty self-explanatory. Train skills, the first level of things cost 1, second level of things cost 2, third level of things cost 3, and as you can see there's little arrows pointing stuff around, which is like traditional, you are playing a video game style RPG leveling up skills. And there are also blank ones in there. If you want to invent your own skill, you can do that. And that is basically it. The only other thing we need to do now is do the finishing touches, which is great. Your stress will start at 2, your resolve will start at 0, your max health is twice your strength. I've just seen that Mothership RPG is hosting us as I just sit here doing whatever that was. All right.
Your lift music.
And then you're supposed to see how much money you've got, but you don't want to worry about that because I'm sure you've got loads of money. And yeah, okay. I think we're good to go. Now we do the fun part. So both of you got all the stuff that we've gone through so far?
I think so. Was it just with the skills? Is that just the I've gone for Android, so I just pick 2 things, or what's the like? How do I know how many skill points I'm spending?
You start with, as an android,
Yes.
you start with computers, mathematics, and linguistics, and then you
I
have
Yes.
2
see.
points to spend on additional skills. If it
Bonus
influences either of your decisions, I've gone for military training, gunnery, and art.
The
Wonderful.
art of war.
Wonderful.
Exactly. You stole my punchline.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay, right. Now we do the fun part. I think it's a fun part anyway. I mean, I think hopefully a lot of this is going to be a fun part. So,
What's a rim wise?
what's a win wise?
What's a rim wise? I'm not gonna.
This is a
I'm not
family
gonna
show
get it.
over.
I'm not going to get it because I can't pronounce it because it's got two different R and W sounds. In it.
Yeah.
What on earth?
Is it a
that?
skill?
It's a skill.
Yeah.
It's called rim
It's
wise.
3 up from the bottom
And I
of the
think-
first column.
That sounds filthy.
It must be something to do with combat.
I think it's
'Cause
probably
Yeah.
to do with
into
knowing.
firearms.
No, I think it's probably to do with. Oh, maybe it is. I presume
I
it's
think
like
it's-
streetwise, but for
Yeah.
the rim of space.
I see.
That's what I think for the outer rim. Yeah, knowledge of the outer rim is what chat's saying. Got it. Streetwise. Okay, so this is the fun part now. This is the fun part. I say this is the fun part. I love this. Okay. Pip, you have a trinket on you.
Ooh.
And that trinket is... You have some opera glasses on you, and you have a patch on your suit that says, "Don't run, you'll only die tired." And it's a back patch. So the back of your sort of jumpsuit says, "Don't run, you'll only die tired." And you have some opera glasses. Ava, you have upon you some pills. Areca nut. Spelled Arecanut. I have no idea what Areca nut pills are, but you've got some.
And we will find out.
I reckon not, I do. Okay. And then you have a patch which is "Take my life," in brackets, please.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Oh, I'm a horrible person.
Okay. And then, Tom, you've got your patch, have you? You've got America, have you?
Yes. Yes, I've got the United States flag. No, I have some secret pills, which will, I don't know, I feel like will feed into the character of Juice Springsteen later on. And my patch says, "I love myself."
Okay, so now now you have all the information you need, Pip and Ava, to now in your mind kind of flesh out the rest of what your character is, come up with a name, etc. Come up with a simple thought, and then in a minute we will be good to jump in. I am just going to go and grab myself a drink of water, and then we will begin. Mothership. What do we got?
I'm called Matt Lees.
Okay. Okay.
That's chat. Chat suggested it.
It's happened again.
That's chat, huh?
You let chat have decisions, and yeah.
Chat. Right. Interesting. Okay.
I'm Auxilia Pendragon because I like a lot of syllables.
Auxilia Pendragon. Okay. So we have
You
Matt.
can call me Oxy.
You've got a good name, and we've got stupid names.
Whoa there. Bit harsh on the old boss there.
It's true. It has been said. The thing is, before we kicked off, I was now going to alter your windows to say what your character's name are next to you, and it's just going to be really confusing, but I'll do it anyway. Okay. It's like Pip, in brackets, Matt Lees. It's like, okay, that's gonna scan, isn't it? People are going to be like, but isn't that Matt Lees? Did I misremember all this stuff? Okay. Okay.
If it legit gets too confusing, we can absolutely change it. But
No, it's fine. I'm not Matt Lees. I'm the warden for today. It's fine. Right. Congratulations, all of you. Congratulations. You have all won a competition, which is just great news, basically. Great news. You won a competition called the Wreck and Roll Gold Club Smash Hit Society Crew. Basically, you signed up for something you probably shouldn't have, but it did offer a get-rich-quick scheme. The Wreck and Roll sweepstakes were the first tier of it, and all you had to do to be a part of the Wreck and Roll sweepstakes was wear a kind of like a little wristband tracker, because three of you, in your previous lives worked as kind of people in space, just sorting out bits and bobs of scrap. You're not exactly the stars of the stars. You're not exactly incredible heroes. You are people who go out there and go to derelicts and look for some scrap and find some bits and see what you can do, and then you bring it back and you sell it. Now, you've been doing this for a while. It's not great money, but it's actually kind of reliable, and in the grand scheme of things, it's not as dangerous as a lot of work. However, there was an opportunity for you to make a bit extra with this scheme. All you had to do was wear a little wristband, basically like a space Fitbit, and it would just track stuff. It would track how often you were doing things. You would then link it up to your account, so it would see how much money you'd made from selling scrap, etc. And the reason you did all of this stuff was that the winners, a bunch of winners, were going to get 10,000 credits, which isn't a huge amount of money, but 10,000 credits for basically doing nothing, like what you would usually do, seemed like a pretty good deal. So you did it, and you won. You got an invitation, and weirdly, you got the money. They transferred you 10,000 credits into your accounts. Oh, by the way, none of you know each other. Like you're all just three people who happen to do this. You've never met before until today. Which point you head off on the invitation after already being given this money. You've headed off to go to a grand award ceremony, which is where they're going to actually unveil the Wrecker of the Year. And the Wrecker of the Year is going to win 1 million credits, which is no small amount. So you've headed off, either begged, borrowed, stealed, got a little crap shuttle, however you've done it, you've headed off to this, frankly, a bit of an odd remote point in space, which is going to be the meetup location that's going to take you on a little convoy to the actual event where one lucky person is going to be given this fantastic award and they're going to get 1 million credits. And that's the last thing you can remember before you wake up, was this invitation to the Gold League. You could be a part of the Gold League. You've made some money already, but if you want to go here, you could maybe win the grand prize and you could maybe level up and become part of the Gold League. And then you wake up. And you wake up in a rather strange room. You are in a room with some cryosleep pods in it. Now, effectively, this is a very strangely shaped room. It's kind of white. It's very bright. You can't really see much at this point because you've just come around. You're not sure how long you've been out for. And you stumble out of the pod. And Tom, I'm talking to you now here because you're the first person to stumble out of this pod into this bizarre room. And you can see on the image I've sent you, you're on the kind of right-hand side of this.
Yeah, okay.
And you can see in front of you, it's very white, it's very bright. Your eyes are just starting to clear up from the frost.
Juice goes, it's so bright in here, and puts on his cool sunglasses ready to seize the day.
He pops out his sunglasses, and you can now see much more clearly. Damn, in fact, you can see across the wall, it says, the Gold League, new prizes and opportunities await. Now this is kind of some sort of slight holographic projection. It's not actually written on the wall. It's sort of like a visible text just kind of standing out on the screen, kind of very gently kind of popping and glowing. And you can see that the room curves around to the left, where it looks to be, you can't exactly see from here, but it looks like there's some sort of alcove just around the corner. To your left and to your right, you see two other cryopods, which are just starting to make the kind of gentle hisses and hums of cryopods kind of basically defrosting themselves like a fantastic joint of lamb. I was going to say ice lollies. I'm like, you don't want to defrost ice lollies. That's the last
definitely
thing.
not.
And as this happens, the second cryopod pops open and out stumbles Matt Lees.
Oh my goodness, I'm such a fan of all your board game content on the internet that I love to watch in my space record job. Wow.
Okay, that's interesting, Tom, because like that's what are you talking about, Tom? You're talking about.
Hello, human.
That's interesting. Okay, I'm gonna just take a note of that. Okay.
Oh no, I feel like I've done something terribly wrong already.
No, it's fine. It's just you just the year is it's a different. That's some ancient past stuff. That's some ancient history stuff. It's interesting you know about that. Okay, so. Pip, you stumble out into this room again, seeing the same letters across the wall and all of this stuff as Ava stumbles out, the final pod popping out into the world.
Hiya!
Hey, how's everyone doing? Oh god, these things give me such a headache. Is there a pot on?
Is there a pod? It's very strange, a bizarre affectation for the older things, for a world before. And again, their names: Matt Lees, Juice Springsteen, and Auxiliar Pendragon?
Auxilia Pendragon.
Auxilia Pendragon.
Slightly harder to remember than
trio we have here. So in the room you have a doorway of some sort to the right, which is currently closed. The room is faintly, it's like a big stretched egg. You've got a kind of a dome-like shape going around and a kind of ovoid towards the end, where the ceiling becomes a little bit more angular and abstract on the verge of sculptural as it kind of hits around to this outward peak. But the rest of the sides, everything is kind of has an alabaster flatness to it. There's very little in the room you're in apart from these pods. and this message on the wall, and a great deal of empty space.
So there's not a
You
path.
don't remember
Or
how
say.
you got here. Like, you arrived here. It doesn't appear to be any kind of apparatus for making tea in the room, no. There may be
Can I
around the
get
corner.
back in the cryopod if there's not going to be?
I mean, you
RTO?
can, but you probably should be slightly concerned about the fact that you don't remember how you got here or what's going on. Yeah, Tom, have you got to pretend that before this started you were a person having a life or something? It's very complicated.
Who are you two people? What? Who? What?
God. Hi, my name's Juice Springsteen, but you can call me Juice for short. If I had a character sheet on that, if I had a character sheet like one of my favorite role-playing games that I would watch my good friends at Shut Up and Sit Down, which I'm a big fan of, Matt Lee's play, then I would be strong of mind but weak of body. But my brain is my asset in securing the Gold Club membership, which we're all here for, and I will claim for me only if I remember that. Do I remember that, Games Master? And I look up and I praise the Games Master.
Other
But-
human? This
As you
human
look
seems
up-
broken.
Oh,
As you look up, you realise that actually it may have been something you hadn't just noticed before, but you notice suddenly, kind of just off the ceiling, really, is a kind of a three-dimensional cuboid oblong shape, exactly the same colour as the walls and the ceilings. It's about 1 foot by 2 feet, and it's very harsh edges, and it's just, again, alabaster, just a white thing, and it's just there. And as you take steps to the side, you realise it's not being held up by anything. It appears to be some sort of abstract hover art, just a plain brick.
Bruce goes. Not Bruce. Juice goes. What do you chumps think of this strange abject shape on the ceiling? I sure didn't sign up to this before I went into quarantine sleep. Where are we? Who are we? How does it affect me? Help. I'm lost in space.
I thought you just said you were quite big on the old intellect. But you seem to be
Well,
something? I don't
why
know.
don't you? You're probably not qualified to explain this, are you? What's your name again? And I
I'm
point
Oxy.
to Oxy. What? Why don't you explain this giant shapeoid and the ceiling if you're so smart?
Well, I mean, it looks like it's some kind of anti-gravity thing.
Oh, I'm good at anti-gravity. To what extent? Who can say? In what capacity?
What,
No
are you
one
suggesting
knows.
that you're 10% of a 10% of a zero G expert?
I believe that might be the exact percentage, Oxy. Thank you. Yes,
Well,
I feel
the human
very
currently known,
validated.
as the human currently known as Matt Lee's Pip, you're intrigued by this
Android.
object. Android, sorry, as the android currently known as Matt Lee's, you are immediately intrigued by this object. Could you do me a? Let's have a look at some things. Let's have a look. Can you do me an intellect stat check based on your ability to be good at anti-gravity stuff?
So how do I do that? Do I just roll two
So
dice,
easy.
or-
So what you do is you roll 2 die, but you will use one of them as the kind of the tens, and then the other one is so basically get a score out of 100. And I
Uh-huh.
believe the way it works is basically
You need to get under your skill.
Yes, that's
Okay.
it. I learned all this and then I got nervous and I've forgotten things.
Okay,
It's
so
been really odd
30.
being so nervous today. I don't get nervous very often.
I am 1 under, so yes.
Oh, so you just made it. Okay, well, I'll give you that.
did.
Yeah, so basically you are intrigued by this object because of the fact that your android eyes give you a bit of an edge here in the fact that you can kind of see reality in a little bit of a clearer way than most humans can. And you're noticing that this object isn't really vibrating in a way that usually this kind of technology usually would have some sort of some sort of visible vibration, and you're checking with the audio units in your head as well, and it's not really making any noises either, which is unusual. Unusual. And in fact, I think I'm going to ask you to make a No, actually, I'm gonna ask you to make a check. I'm gonna ask you to make a check. Yeah. I'm gonna ask you to make a check.
You want to check?
Only Pip, I want you to do a what's it called? A stress check. You're gonna gain some stress.
Okay. So
Actually, that's it. No, you just gained some stress. Sorry, that's entirely true.
So how many stress?
Just one.
One.
You can start with 2 stress, I believe.
Yeah.
Just 1 stress as a snap.
Just one.
Okay.
It's not a big problem. It's just a little bit of a problem. Although it's sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say. So Oxy, Juice, or Bruce, whoever you are, I think it's off. So that's good. But also, it's stressing me out.
Well,
So.
because I'm Juice Springsteen and I know how to resolve problems effectively, I think we should find the person in charge here so they can explain what the ruddy hell is going on. And I walk towards. I can see on the map there's like a door-like thing, right, Matt? Not Matt. Wait, not Pip, Matt. Matt,
Yes.
Matt.
Hello.
Toward it.
No, I meant.
Matt, can you see that door over there? Like, they seem to think
Yeah, I can.
there's a door over there. Yeah, okay, that's good. Yeah,
Okay.
verified. So that's a door.
Pip. Pip, as you hear this strange American facsimile wobbling off, you look down at him, but then also you look back up at the object on the ceiling that you've been looking at to discover it's not there anymore.
Oh no. Oh well, that's a problem. Because was it a floating cube? I'd forgotten a bit, but
Yeah, it's slightly elongated, so it's a bit oblongy or
so I
rectangular,
thought,
if
I've
you
got
prefer that word.
this, and I was gonna
Wow.
hover it, but then it's gone, so that's going.
It's not there, no.
Hey, you two, the thing is gone. Look,
What? Oh,
What?
oh.
What thing?
the floating thing that was off. But I feel like this isn't right, is it? This isn't normal. This isn't what you humans do and experience, right?
Was it just a hologram or something? Like, how can you be sure it was? Is it not one of these, like the words on the wall that I've forgotten what they say?
Yeah, I can't read those right now.
As we
So
carefully look in the other direction.
whatever that said, it wasn't emitting any energy. Like there was no like hum, there was no like light flicker. It was just there. But that's why I thought it was off. But maybe it wasn't off because now it's actually off or gone. Help!
It's weird, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Gosh.
It's weird.
It does.
Pretty sure objects normally stay in places unless you're moving them, right?
Yeah.
As a
And it
geologist.
plugged in.
As you are having this conversation, Tom, you realise that the back area of the area, looking back down the room towards the kind of slightly curvy, knobbly end of the room, which is a bit strange, you notice 2 things. You notice that these strange bubble-like shapes at the end of the room are in fact viewing platforms. They are made of some sort of plexiglass which allows you to see out, and you can see that you are indeed still in space, and you can see that there is 2 bubble viewing stations outside of space, and you can also see within this area almost perfectly centered, actually framed in a beautiful way, further leaving you to feel like this must be some sort of piece of art, is an oblong cube just floating perfectly in space.
Huh. Well, can I use my art skill to try and understand the art?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Dang! That looks like some cool art over there that I definitely understand. And now I'm gonna roll. Shame. Wait, hold on. What am I even rolling? Intellect?
Yeah, I'm trying to work that out. I guess it's intellect. I guess it is intellect.
Shame I don't understand it though.
Well, what happens? What do you roll?
I rolled 63, which is bad.
Okay. That's a fail. Well, I'm not going to give you stress or panic for failing an art
For
roll.
not understanding art. That's a good attitude towards art in general.
What I'm going to say is that you look at it and you're trying to understand. You're maybe an amateur in art, but you're still flabbergasted because when you get close to it, you realise that the edges on this thing are peculiarly, I can't say that word, oddly sharp. They don't look like sculpture to you. There's something about it. It's almost like the edges and the corners of this thing. You kind of get a bit fixated on them. You can't, as close as you get, even you might go as far as to gently take your glasses down. And there's something about this as a piece of art that just leaves you feeling odd.
I'm getting an overwhelming urge to touch the art. And
Are you going to touch the sculptures?
I touch the art. What happens? Tell me, please.
The credits start rolling for CSI Miami. No. So nothing happens. It is cool to the touch. It almost has a kind of marble-like quality, even though it looks like plastic. And yeah, has a kind of coldness to it. And again, like, for you've not got the eyes for this sort of thing, but it has no vibration to it. It just is. You feel like you may as well be putting your hand against a wall. It's just a physical object, like, that is solid and grounded, and there's no sense of give on it, or it just is.
So for me, hold on, but so wasn't Matt Lees seeing a different kind of a wobbliness to the shapes?
No, there was no vibration, which was odd because usually anti-gravity would require some form of
right.
But I believe in our many chats so far in this room, Oxy mentioned some kind of geology expertise. Is there some sort of material science that you can exact upon this?
Does anyone in this room have some experience in geology?
I need a geologist.
Even at this rate, I can tell.
I'm not a geologist, damn it, Jim.
That's not a rock.
It's not a rock. Yeah, I mean, I can have a look and see exactly what this thing is made of, but like, it's probably not made of rock. So let's see what happens.
I mean, you can have a check if you want.
I start chipping away at it with my tiny hammer.
Let's take it in turns to look at the thing that's not a rock.
All right. What's your geology skill based on? Intellect, probably.
Yeah.
Do me an intellect check.
Yeah, with the geology bonus.
Yes, of course.
I forgot to roll 100 dice. Wait, let me try again. 41, that is under intellect, even without my extra knowledge in geology.
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, you look at it, and you take out your tiny geologist hammer, which will allow you to have, as long as you don't use it like they did in that documentary, The Shawshank Redemption. Very naughty.
I mean, this is going to be a very long stream if I have to do like 40 years of chipping away behind a post. Oh no,
you start caving your way out of space now. I think it's okay. I mean, I only watched that for the first time about 2 weeks ago, and I think there's no excuse for that. Anyway, so you're basically looking at this, looking for a space or a position with which you might be able to kind of tap it and get a sense of it. And actually, yeah, you're having a kind of more extreme version of the fixation that Tom was having, of looking at it and kind of going around it, trying to see any kind of point which might be rock-like, because every part of your brain and every part of your geology is telling you that this is a stone object from being able to touch it and look at it, but it's not. It's clearly not. It's simultaneously maybe two things at once in a way which is uncanny and odd. And you go to have a little tap at it with the hammer just to get a sense of a noise, and the second just before you're about to hit it, it disappears.
Quantum sculpture.
And looking around, it's now just behind you guys. And now you are
Oh.
facing out towards. You're quite close now. You're quite close. You can see out the windows. You can see a whole bunch of space out the window. You're now towards the bottom, and you can basically see the exterior of this section. And you can also see that there are other parts of this from the outside of the ship. Surprise, surprise. It's possible here that there are multiple things going on.
On the map, it looks like there's an exit to the room. To the cryosleep room. And I feel like Juice... I mean, chat is saying go through the window. And I feel like we're trying to get, I'm confused, don't know what's going on. Matt Lees and Orksy don't seem to know what's going on either. I want to find an authority figure so I can get my money prize that I was promised.
All
So
right.
can I boldly turn away from the window and start walking towards the door on the other side of the room?
You can. Yeah, you can.
Or
And as you go through...
Matt, would that be a bad idea for reasons on the stream?
No, it's fine. I was just going to say, all you can see over on... you can sort of just see some other rooms outside, because you kind of can't get a sense of it when you're at the windows. But the thing when you look out the windows you can see is that there are some other rooms around you, but also this is some sort of like elongated station. There are clearly different layers. It's a bit like a kind of corn on the cob, but with less corn kernels on. It clearly goes up and goes down quite some distance. You're not really able to see how it's like when you put your head outside of a skyscraper. You can see a little bit of stuff, but not that much. But you are able to kind of make out some bits of things. And then you're going to go through this door, huh?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Is this like a race or something, do you reckon? Are we supposed to... Should we follow the weird boy?
Maybe. Like, I mean, I was supposed to be a winner already, so I'm not really sure why I'm having to compete for more things, Like, I was somebody, I was some robot in the not so distant past with
We were all
10,000
somebody once, Pip.
credits to my name.
We were all somebody.
I feel
Yeah,
like
you're not really
I'm-
sure about that.
yeah.
Like, you did have your credits, but your credits were on board with your personal effects, and you don't really have any of your personal effects that you had before with you anymore. So unfortunately,
I
that money.
definitely had them. They're in my other space trousers, but I feel like, yeah, I'm a winner. I don't need to compete, but maybe we should go after this juice person. Yeah, you're right, because I don't want to miss out. I get
I mean-
FOMO.
There's something weird going on here if there's things just like bouncing around and disappearing. But I thought there was like a grand prize, or there was like the ultra prize, and I thought like there's no way we've won that. But then maybe if we're together we can split it between the three of us and that'll be fun. I don't know.
That's true.
I mostly want a cup of tea.
Yeah, no, that seems
We'll
really
And,
find
like,
you
I'm
tea.
assuming there's going to be a
Tea.
hospitality suite somewhere.
Oh,
So
good call. Yeah, maybe
I-
some snacks.
yeah.
Mm.
So we've woken up from cryosleep. We're confused, but more than that, we're peckish. So the weird space object, don't care. Want to find some custard creams as soon as possible.
Well, like if it's
Okay.
not heavy and it's not resistant, we could take the statue with us, but or the sculpture. But I'm not sure how big it is. Was that a thing that we covered?
It keeps
Yeah.
moving, right?
But
Well, what
like,
happens if should we push it? Should we push it towards the door?
yeah, I feel
You
like-
actually
Shall we-
currently you currently can't see it. It's not in the room
Oh,
as far
okay.
as you're aware
It's gone.
right now,
It's
unless
gone.
you want
It's
to look
gone
around the
again.
room. Yeah,
I thought
it's
it was
like
behind us.
yeah, it was.
Oh, it's
Oh.
gone. Well, in that case,
gone
yeah, we
again.
should probably.
It's the prize. We've got to break it with this gun that I have.
Whoa!
Let's
Please,
I
no
had
guns.
a hammer, but you've got a gun now. This is awkward.
Well, look, if that's how it reacted to being mildly prodded with a hammer, I feel like this firearms situation is not going to get us anywhere good. I feel like maybe we should start smaller, because it was fine with the touching, so that wasn't so there could be some licking, there could be some hugging,
Breathing.
or
Breathing
I
here.
don't.
A
Yeah,
hug's a good idea.
Yeah, it
That's
feels
a
like
good
it's
idea, that.
very against anger or violence.
Some
So-
caresses.
You notice that the message on the wall, which previously said, "Invitation to the Gold League, new prizes and opportunities await," says, "Your adventure begins today."
Ah.
And as you leave the room, you basically discover this next section has a kind of like circular corridor to it. So you come out of the main room, and you are now in this circular corridor section, whereby you can see it spirals off to 5 other doorways, all of which are sealed. Now, the door you walk through to enter this kind of ring corridor is a traditional slidey thing. You just get near it, and it just very gently glides open. It's not any of this. It's very quick, but very smooth. Again, the same sorts of materials, all the same sorts of materials. The walls, the doors, this cube you've seen every now and then. All the same stuff. And then you walk out into this corridor, and you can see a bunch of other doors. So although none of the doors at the moment are opening, apart from there is a door on the far side which does open.
Let's go in.
And within that room, you have.
Sorry.
No, it's
It's
fine.
all a
Like,
bit
that's kind of
squish,
the.
isn't it? Like these
That's-
doors. Like I'm used to
Yeah.
a big like clumpy clunk on the old mining ship.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this is just a whoosh. I
Yeah,
could,
I
I could
mean,
go
like-
for that. Maybe that's what I spend my money on.
They don't even close all the way where the one that I was on last. Like
I
they
mean,
just sort of like get
that's-
halfway and
Very dangerous in space. That is.
I know. I mean, luckily I don't breathe, but I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
so I guess they would always put me in the malfunctioning rooms, but but my stuff would still
Wow.
get sucked into
Yeah,
space.
do you have any?
Like can't keep
Do you
my
have any rooms that aren't
hydroponics.
malfunctioning?
How are you going to keep a little nice bottle garden going if it's all getting whooshed out into space every 5 minutes?
I
It's
know.
not
I mean,
fair.
it's
The way
a sealed
people treat
environment,
androids.
but thank you. That's what I've been saying. That's what all my notes to management have said. If you'd like to sign my change.org petition, I'll send you a link after.
Yeah.
Anyway. So yeah, should we go through there? Like, Juice, where are you?
What?
Ugh.
Well,
Oh God, why did you call for him? We might be losing.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I like this new narrative string. Well, Juice goes, I would like to go through I'd like to go through that door, but I've just seen that there's a bathroom sign just around the corner, and I'm gonna investigate that real quick.
Bizarrely, there is no bathroom within this scenario, but that's another
Oh,
difficult question for
no.
another difficult time. So,
At least he's in the corner, I suppose.
What I miss, gang.
oh.
I shouldn't have had a
The cube's back.
I shouldn't have had a whole can of disco forklift truck mango pale ale before going into cryosleep.
What?
you didn't go into cryosleep. I keep having to. You woke up from cryosleep, but you don't remember going into cryosleep. Juice, you might
What?
be an idiot, but you have to be an idiot in space.
So we're back to the cube, the thing, the space object.
No, the cube is back to us.
Ah, it's important. Okay.
Yes. Now, I've sent you a little map update, which you can see on
Oh.
the stream thing as well if you want to see that, but whatever, I'll send them in the thing so you can see it. So now, you've come out through the only door that will basically open into this very large oval room again that has 2 other exits going off to the left and the right. One of them has an adventure, an arrow pointing towards it saying adventure, ! And the other to the right has an arrow saying, it's simply adventure, but with a big red circle and a cross through it, which I believe is just supposed to be a unifying symbol of I do not want to go on an adventure. And this room, you can see, has some very large text. Again, on one of these curving screens, the whole back wall has this big curving screen that you can just about see refracted through what's in front of you, which is a very large hexagon shape made out of some sort of very thick glass. And Yeah, it's basically like a kind of window. And as you get close to it, as you walk through the room, this big shape in the middle of the room, you look down, and it's clearly kind of a glass pipe of some sort that goes down into this facility, space station, whatever it is, and up again, continuing both ways in this space. And then through there, you can see this massive board, and on this massive board, it says that this is the Hall of Fame. And big Hall of Fame, and across it has all of these little things, all of these little snippets of videos, all of these little characters, and in front of it there is a small pedestal which has a very simple kind of rollerball style thing, and you've been around space enough to know that this is probably some sort of computer device.
Oh, I have
Okay.
computers. I think. Wait, let me
I
check.
definitely have computers.
Nice.
But you
yeah.
also are a computer, so maybe you can take this one.
We might
Wait,
be
is
very
that
different
okay? Am I allowed to say
computers. Why don't we?
Sorry,
we could,
I didn't think
could
that.
we team up so both of our computer resources are in play at the same time?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can
take,
roll
you
roll
do
for
the right side
advantage,
of the
can't you?
keyboard, and I'll do the
Yeah,
left
you can
side
roll
of
for
the keyboard.
advantage with that.
Yeah.
So do you want to do me an intelligence check with roll for advantage?
Okay. Whichever hand I was operating on has succeeded. How did
Yes.
Oxy? How's it gone?
Oh no, it just means that you would roll. I think you rolled
I
twice.
see.
With advantage,
Oh,
you
well,
just get to
fine.
roll twice and choose the best number.
Well,
But
I'm
you have to work
apparently
out
doing it
why.
one-handed anyway then.
So Oxy, how
So
are you?
fast.
How are you assisting? How are you assisting with this this computer skill check?
On this single rollerball interface. Yeah, no, I'm keeping a focus on what's changing around, and if there's any switches in the interface, and generally providing like a kind of coaching, slightly arseholey background, like over the shoulders, like, oh yeah, no, that's good, yeah, press that one.
Well,
Have you
that
tried
is
turning it off and on again?
well, that's absolutely ideal because actually, Matt, the android currently known as Matt Lees. For those of you just tuning in, Pip's character is called Matt Lees. You realise that actually you probably didn't need any help with this, and actually the help that you're getting from behind you of trying to work out what this device is reminds you a lot of your youth hanging around in some of the slum bars at the edges of the rim, trying to trick tourists, humans, into giving you a little bit of cash for some sort of pointless guide work. Is that it's a lot like a quiz machine. It's not a very complicated machine at all. This is an incredibly simple machine. And you can almost hear the echoes of people shouting out the wrong answers from behind you. As you put your hand and you move this on, it's basically a rollerball with a kind of clicky mechanism. It's just a roll and a click. But the difference is, as with most of the stuff in this space and room, it's made of that kind of alabaster, white, marbly, stony material. And as you do it, as soon as you start moving it, you realise there is a kind of selection tool, and you realise that all of these different little clips that are playing all kind of freeze as you roll over them, and it selects different clips. And you realise that actually, as you hover over them, it starts to pop up with numbers and stats and information. And you realise that what you're looking at here is a high score table of sorts. And by clicking on things, you can actually then have a look at different kind of high scores. And you also notice that behind you in the room, whilst Pip is doing this, whilst Matt is doing this, it's slightly confusing, but it's fine, we'll go with it. Juice and Oxy, you realise that, that the thing is back. The cuboid thing is back. It's behind you again. And also on the wall, the same message that was there before, which said, "Your adventure begins today," or something thereabouts, now says, "Your adventure begins soon."
Okay.
So now,
Okay.
Pip, you've got this entire wall of options in front of you of things you can do. Do you want to investigate some of these things? You click on one randomly, and it says misadventure explosives. It's a burly trio of something. You don't recognise them. It's some sort of species you've not really seen before, and it shows you kind of a little snapshot. It's almost like looking through someone's holiday photos, but they have a strangely videographic feel to them, and you realize these are actually kind of micro snapshots of some sort. As an android, you can recognize that these are not quite photographs, but they're basically videos taken, but in an incredibly slow kind of rate, which means they give the effect of a static image when actually there is some movement within these. These are moments captured in time, and you can see them mining a strange asteroid of some sort, and it popping up with some sort of insignia and some sort of numbers to determine that they'd obviously found something on this asteroid, which was really important. You see them barely escaping from something that is blurry and clawed, and it's blurry here because it's actually kind of been redacted somehow. There's not, it's actually been pixelated out by the software that's taken this video footage. And then you see them setting a bomb, and then just as they're in the process of setting this bomb, you see in very slow motion an explosion, whiteness, and then that's the last clip. And yeah, that's it. And this is about a third of the way down the screen. You realize that as the screen goes up, you have numbers going up, and as the screen goes down, you get towards the bottom, the numbers getting a lot lower.
Can we look at the top score?
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Scroll up.
Okay, so the top score, it says the death is simply misadventure brackets gas, and you see a kind of a shot of them. It looks like they're escaping some sort of plague. It's kind of a heroic shot of them leaping onto a ship with some locals, while some sort of horrible plague ravages in the background. You can tell it's a plague in this tiny snapshot because of the fact that it's clearly just mutating people's bodies horrendously and rapidly, and actually even in this very short form clip you can see people just exploding in a terrifying way. You see them then finding some sort of relic. Another time, the characters look a little older, a little more haggard, but they found something. You can't really make out what it is, but it's glowing and it looks kind of cool, and whatever this system is determines that it's worth a lot of points. And then you see a bloody gunfight in which they are torn to shreds, but kind of escape despite that. They're wounded, but you see them basically just crawling away with their lives. And then finally, you see a snapshot of them exploring some sort of planet and realizing that basically they're kind of keeling over and melting slightly within their EVA suits, and that's their death. But on this one, as it's one of the top things, it actually has a big button you can select within this, which says load data.
Click.
Yeah.
Okay, you press it, and nothing happens on the screen. But Juice, you standing close to the door, hear a kind of very gentle hum behind you, and you turn around to see that this glass hexagon in front of you has very rapidly somehow, like some sort of, it looked like it was air inside the tube, but actually it appears to be some sort of liquidy gloop, some sort of thick gloop, because you realise that you now see in front of you the EVA suits, within it still the bodies, now skeletons, of 3 people floating within this glass container. And you also see the relic that they had found, this glowing red and gold thing now encased within this goop, and just sort of there, fixed in place. Again, you're not sure how it got there, but it's you can tell it's very gently. There's some bubbles around the edge of it, and it's being held there.
Okay. Can I get closer to it and see if what the glass substance is made of? If I'm able to break it to get those things free.
Cover us
Sure.
in gloop.
Goop
Sure. So
time. Goop time.
So what do you want to do? What are you trying? How are you going to try and determine what the material is?
You know, yeah. Okay, I'll roll intellect. I guess is that I'm going to use my big brain with many facts inside it. Is that reasonable?
Yeah.
Small brain central, it turns out. I look at the glass and go, what am I looking at?
Okay, you don't really know. You look at it and you just think, gosh, that's really quite thick.
Okay.
And it looks back at you and thinks something similar.
So, here's the thing. I'm not going to do the voice of Juice Springsteen when I'm discussing to the human players behind the android and auxilia. Shall we go down the adventure path? Like, there were two paths. There was like adventure and adventure crossed out. Here's what I think. We're gonna get tested somehow, and we're gonna be one of those scores on the scoreboard. And I think that big alabaster sculpture thing is recording all this to upload it to Space YouTube for the people at Harry Hill. Harry Hill is gonna comment over us being gooed, and it's gonna go on. You've been space gooed and also framed. So let's walk down that adventure thing and go boldly into danger. And then I'll say,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
What do you gotta say?
I was just going to ask how well you feel you've done with your tests so far.
I'm prepared to be the sacrificial lamb.
I just feel like we're all going to end up in a big tube of goo. I don't want to become some like.
You don't want to be on
space
YouTube.
Toothpaste. Already did that joke. But you were talking.
Oh, sorry.
So then, in which case, shall we go in the non-adventure thing? Because I feel like the non-adventure we're gonna end up in goo way quicker than adventure.
That's true.
I think non-adventure will lead straight into death.
I mean, I'm immune to gas, so I'm kind of fine. It's mostly your problem at this point with the gas.
Okay.
So we could.
Sure.
I'm fine with the adventure.
Okay.
We do love adventure.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Could we? Oh, before we go, could I use my software to download any useful things from the goo tube? Like,
That's an interesting idea. Well, okay. Do you want to poke around in the back of this device, see if you can find some sort of way to interface it?
Yeah, I would, please. What do
Okay.
I need to check against?
Give me
I'm
a-
guessing
give me a-
computers again.
Yeah, give me your computers roll.
Okay, computers. There will be no
no.
computers. I got a 96.
Okay. Well, what I'm going to say is that you're fiddling around at the back of this and you're trying to work out how you might interface it. You can't find a way in, and then you realize basically you're being an idiot. You realize you're an android, and I am going to ask you now to make a check for what's it called?
Oh no, is it an iOS system? Android.
That's good. It's good, Pip. That's why you're here. That's why you're here. Oh, it's
Well, there
too
it is.
good.
I've peaked. I'm just gonna leave.
I don't believe it. I do not believe it. So, what's the thing? Okay. I would like you to make a fear check.
Okay. Where do I get the fear info? Do I just roll for how scared I am? Oh, it's on the other thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, androids aren't easily scared at all. I got 12. So
you're fine.
yeah.
Okay,
My
so for a
fear is
brief-
85.
Exactly. For a brief moment, you're kind of a bit freaked out by your own idiocy, but it's not a big deal. You just go, okay, whatever. And you realise that you can't work out a way of interfacing with this thing directly, but you're an android, which means you can literally because this computer device seems to be really quite speedy and responsive, there's no reason why you can't basically record a lot of this data. So you won't be able to transfer a lot of it, but you can very rapidly just by going around and just looking at all the stuff, because it's relatively static information. You can just record it. You can just record it to your brain as less fallible memories. So if you want to take a couple of minutes to just get some of this data that you can then look at in your own time, then you can do that.
I'm going to get some data that I can look at in our own time. I'm just going to be over here bleeping and blooping. So if you would like to,
Yeah, I mean the
Is that
sign
right?
says soon, doesn't it? So I
Yeah.
guess that's okay. We can have a little. Still looking for a kettle.
Yeah.
Sorry, a space kettle.
All right.
Can we go
So-
back to the big donut room and look for a kettle, or is that?
You
We've
can,
already
but the
looked
doors
at
are
that.
all
Already
doors are
looked
all
at that.
shut. You can investigate
okay.
around, but you can't get through those doors at the moment. So
Darn.
you've grabbed some data. That is it within your brain box now. You can ask me whenever you want for some information on that. You've jumped around a little bit. You haven't exclusively got all of it, but you've just jumped around and grabbed some samples, some from the top, some from the bottom. Whilst you're doing it, actually, just to satisfy some of your own interests, you have actually kind of realised that for the top 10, because you've got the first top 10 of it anyway, they all have the button that says bring up data, which basically, like, again, you clicked another one of those and some other corpses and some equipment just float within the goo, and you see this time juice that they kind of move up and then move back down again. So there's some sort of archival system being used here, which allows you to bring up people who've died and have now been put on GooTube. The only things that you don't get full capture of is when you're getting towards the end of this process, you start to go down to the ones at the bottom, the groups of these people who got the lowest scores. And in that case, the images you don't really have images. Most of these have 3 or 4. The best ones have like 4 or 5 different kind of mini video clips of their exploits, then their death. With these, you tend to have just 1 or 2, mostly just 1. Some of them in a place you don't recognize, looks like some sort of spaceship, and in those cases you see a bunch of things. You see sometimes just explosions, you see sometimes again these redacted, kind of blurred out images of something attacking them, but actually you recognize some of these are within the room you're currently in. Some of these just have one image and they are simply within this room but from a different angle, and again redacted. You can see people cowering in fear for something that's kind of pixelated out, but as far as you can see there's nothing behind the pixelation. It's just the same as the floor. It's just this kind of white area that you almost have to look quite closely to realize that it's been pixelated, because there are some elements of grey within it. It's not completely white, but it's mostly white. And yeah, within these things you can't actually access these things, and it actually comes up being like, it says killed by, and usually you would say killed by misadventure explosives, misadventure melted, killed in combat, or like consumed, but in this case it just says killed by ? And it has a kind of thing underneath it which you can click, which is like kind of a way of like revealing it, like you would with spoiler text on the internet. And you tap on that tentatively when you're spinning your ball around and just doing all of this Android stuff in a really cool way, but it pops up saying spoilers may ruin your experience. Are you sure?
yes. Should I
Okay.
wait? The other, you two, come over here. Should we spoil? How do you feel about spoilers for this adventure?
I go, spoilers for what? Because
I don't know. That's the spoiler. Because
I mean-
otherwise we might need to fight a question mark, and I'm not sure that
Yeah.
we can do that.
you know, what could possibly go wrong?
Oxy, you on board?
Oh, go for it. Okay.
Cool.
I'm like edging towards the adventure door.
Okay. So as you edge towards the door, you press this button, and it then pops up and says, "Killed by," and the question marks disappear to reveal the word "killed by admin." And as you see this, you see that the pixelated part of this image that was purely white is now not completely white. It's actually mostly white, but it also has some edges to it. It looks like a very thin thing. It looks like some sort of two-dimensional almost. Kind of, you know when you cut out a little character out of paper? But you make a thing out of paper. It's like that, but thicker, and it's made out of some material like everything you've seen here. It's made out of this kind of alabaster material by the looks of it. You're kind of looking at this to try and work out what on earth this thing is that it's walking towards the characters, which is about 10 feet tall. You don't really need to get too good a look at it because the writing on the wall you're in changes to "Your adventure has begun." And you can see two sections of the wall on the other side of the room slowly start to slip down. And you realise that the perfectly smooth walls around the edge of this room are, in fact, maybe not as smooth as they presume. And now you have two of these two-dimensional, slightly floppy, but also more firm than you've ever seen anything, things, automatons, starting to make their way towards you. What do you do?
Let's leave the room now. Let's go on adventure. Hit test.
Okay, so I'm going to need you to make.
Yeah,
I'm going to need you to
Yeah.
make. I'm going to need you to make because you're being surprised, and this is technically starting for combat. So you're surprised, which means you have to make a fear save.
Oh no. Okay. Oh no.
I'm fine.
I'm
Oh wait, I'm not fine. Oh no!
What have you got?
I
What have you got?
am not fine either.
Oh.
I am not fine, and whenever I fail a sanity save, everyone around me gets stressed. Oh no, that's
Okay.
sanity. This isn't sanity. This is fear,
It's
right?
not sanity. It's
No,
fear.
we're fine.
And we don't have a
We're
marine
fine.
here, I don't think, do we? Oh no, isn't Tom a marine?
I'm a marine.
Also,
Hang on, so you're a marine who is like really scared.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So, but also as an android, apparently fear saves made in my presence have disadvantage anyway.
Oh my goodness. This is not a good team.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Okay.
failed anyway, so.
Okay, you've all failed your fear save, which means I think you are going to all take stress. So everyone add a stress, and then I think actually Tom, you're going to take 2 stress because you're a marine, and actually isn't it when marines fail a fear save, everybody gets an extra stress? So you might all just take 2 stress. Maybe I'm wrong.
Whenever a marine panics, everyone makes
panics.
a fear
Easy. You're not panicking,
Yeah.
don't worry. Everyone's going to get stressed then. Everyone get 1 stress. Treat yourself. But it also means that you are not able to move. There's going to be a round of combat in which you are not going to be able to move. You're stunned.
Oh no.
And during this time, these enemies, these strange automatons, like weird cheese string, like a cross between cheese strings and the Slender Man,
My goodness.
slink their way. They move in the same way that the doors move within this place, both quickly but also with a remarkable smoothness.
Okay.
However, not as quick. They have quick movements. You can't, it's very quick flip forwards of the feet as they kind of flick forward onto the floor. But then the actual motion towards you is very much kind of like a panther circling a prey, but coming directly for you. So within this first few moments, you all stand aghast because you can't remember the last time you saw walls slicker down off the wall and begin approaching you. While this is happening, you see 2 more start to fall from the wall. You can't even see the positions where they're actually so thin. We're talking like a couple of centimeters each that you can really not exactly be sure where they came from in the first place. And yeah, they are not quite at you, but they are close. It's a large room. and they're making their way around the outside of the gooey glass tube. But you feel confident that they will be upon you very quickly. So I'll move into the second round. You're not surprised. What do you do?
Run. How do I run?
Okay,
Take
you're
out
gonna
my
make speed
opera
check.
glasses and look.
So I'm gonna run towards the adventure. I've decided that I want adventure, and not adventure. I fail my speed check.
Okay. Okay.
It's not great for Juice Springsteen so far.
Okay. Okay. So, how about the rest of you?
I'm
Speed
running.
checks.
I'm running. I'm not going back to that. I'm not going back to the hugging and caressing strategy that we were discussing earlier. Right
Did you?
now,
But did
I'll be
you?
honest with you.
Did you pass your speed checks?
No, very not. 97's a
Okay.
bad roll, right?
That's quite bad.
97. That's very bad.
97.
Yeah. That's very bad. Okay. Pip.
I would like to. I have linguistics, so I could maybe try talking to them.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that is a bad idea.
Well, I've also
mean,
got a vibe shetty. So...
Shetty
You
made
don't.
of
You
vibes.
haven't got any of your personal effects that you had, and also
What?
no. Like apart from the very basics, like you have the tiny memento with you. You have your sunglasses, but you haven't got weapons.
I've got
That's not
my
good at
opera
all.
glasses.
Yeah. So
Pack your opera glasses. Oh well, that's good because I thought the thing that Juice Springsteen can't function without was the trinket. So good to know that I've still got that on me.
you've got the trinket. You're all fine.
I've got my
But-
trinket. Okay.
Yeah. I would say, Pip, as the person who has
Yeah.
actually looked at a lot of this data, you've seen quite a lot of people die. Like within a space of a few seconds, you know at least 10 groups of people such as yourselves have been killed moments after encountering these things. So you could try talking to them, but maybe as an android that would be. It's up to you.
Can I use the data in this moment, like to scan it for any potential weak points? Because presumably, like in the videoing of these players' demise, like maybe there's been a sort of that thing did damage, or like at least even if it took them out, like I could see where things
Yeah,
might hurt
no,
them,
these are
or-
always they're always snapshots. So actually, you only see the moment of death. Like you don't see the
Okay.
fight that ensued. And actually, to be honest, most of the time, you've only seen about 10 of these, and you've maybe seen one or two of the people within these images actually trying to fight back. And
Okay.
yeah, like it didn't look like they got very far with it. And also the other thing about it is, you only have for a very brief split second have seen footage of these things. Like they were redacted before, so you've only had a good look at them for a split second on screen on one of these instances before they actually started happening
Yeah.
for you. So there's no analysis. You could do some analysis if you had time to collect more of the data from the machine or in real life, but right now you have to go with your Android GAT.
I'm a run, so
Okay,
just
where are you running?
Gonna see how that goes. Ooh, 21. So I made it. I'm running.
Fantastic.
Where am
Fantastic.
I
Where are you
How
running?
did this go?
Where do you want to run?
I'm away is the only major direction that I have in mind.
Well-
I'm running away.
Well, you have two options at this point, really. You don't want to run. You want to run away, so you can run either towards adventure or not adventure.
Whichever one's closest, I'm legitimately just gonna. That's gonna be how I make this choice.
Okay. Okay. Well,
yeah.
I'm going to say at this point you're actually slightly closer towards not adventure. So you're going to run towards that.
Okay. Are you two okay
And-
with this, by the way? Because I
Yeah.
could just absolutely
I'm-
go for
I'm-
adventure.
I'm worried for you. You're running fast in the opposite direction to us while we're running slowly.
Oh, hang on.
No,
we're
you
running
haven't.
towards
You
adventure.
haven't. You haven't even started moving yet. You're still frozen in
Right,
shock
okay.
from what is going on.
Okay.
So don't worry about that. You haven't had time to work
I'm
out
gonna
what
get
on
not
earth.
adventure then.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Let's stick with it and see what happens.
I say
So-
no to adventure. This is already too much adventure.
There's definitely too much adventure in this room.
So as you freeze, I'm going to ask you to make a. I'm going to ask you to make a body save.
Who,
Both
me?
both Ava and Tom.
Okay. Ah, nice. 17. So I pass.
And 22. I also pass.
Okay, you pass. So basically, you were in a scenario where they are now kind of upon you, and they're not trying to hit you. They're trying to grab you, and they're doing it with a strange tenderness, but you're still not keen on it. So rather than asking you to roll against having a fight with these things, I've just initially gone with a body pass to see if you can basically, because you are planning to run away, you can sort of just slip away from them and manage to kind of evade them and start legging it before you do. So yeah, you are now running. You've managed to avoid the arms of these things. Where are you running?
Adventure.
Adventure.
This way, meet Thax.
Maybe, okay. In mid-run, we're like... And then we're choosing... Should we go to not adventure? Pip's gone to not adventure. What do you think? What do you think?
I feel like
Foxy?
I feel like the thing doesn't want us to not adventure.
I feel the same way. And then we go towards adventure, right?
At least
We're going on an
we're
adventure.
going on an adventure and we'd really like you with us.
I'll catch up.
You want to come with?
Yeah. I don't want to be on my own.
Okay. I'm going to say that as you started moving, I'm going to say. So we're going to run this out as it happens. So while this grappling was happening, you got a slight advantage on this, and you were off ahead, running away, whilst these two bozos were still trying to get their bodies free from these terrifying alabaster shoestring freaks. You don't have to run very far round the corner, really, just a couple of feet. Well, actually, what's your thing? I'm trying to remember how you work out. What is your speed stat?
My speed stat is 31.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to say that like slightly above average, not much in it. You go around the corner. It doesn't take you very far. The corridor really doesn't go very far at all. The corridor just curves around very slightly before it hits a wall that just has a sad face style emoticon smiley on it, and you very rapidly realise this is not a door. So I will allow you, if you can make a sanity check,
Okay.
because this is strange.
It is a little, isn't it?
I've already failed that, so.
You failed the sanity check. Okay, well, I'm going to ask you to take a point of stress. But as you are an android, you have no problem of just abouting on your about turning and basically running in the opposite direction, realizing that you've hit a dead end, and you are behind the others, but you are heading towards the same area as them.
Okay.
But you are also kind of you are also struggling with the fact that there's some weird stuff going on here. You recognize that immediately. Now you turned and you saw this kind of anti-smiley face, sad face thing, and you don't know why you know what that is. You know what it is. It's called an emoticon or an emoji, and you know what it represents. and you know the context that within this situation, that corridor end was supposed to be some sort of maybe a cruel joke or maybe, but you don't know how you know that, and you're aware of that because of the fact that because you're an android, you kind of have a bit more of a close control of your own memories and your own data, and you think it's strange, and the fact that you don't really remember accessing that kind of information before until you realise that you didn't really know you had that kind of information. Anyway, I'm going to ask you. You two are now nipping around the corner towards the adventure sign. Thankfully, this corridor does continue, and it continues to an airlock of some sort. And at this point, things start to look a bit more familiar. You have this strange kind of glassy bubble exterior that's very similar to the glass pillar in the centre of the room, but at the end of it, the actual connection to the airlock is something that looks far more like something you're actually familiar with. Looks kind of like a spaceship style thing, less of this weird white solid glass look stuff. And yeah, has mechanisms that you can quite clearly see as being open the airlock, close the airlock. And you guys, what are you going to do at that point?
Whap that open the airlock button, I presume. We gotta get out of here.
Okay.
Let's get in there. Let's wait for Matt Lees.
As the airlock,
You do. Help.
as the airlock very gradually opens it itself, you would beg for any of the other doors in this flipping place to be here instead of this airlock. It is not a remarkably fast door, but you're back in old space world apparently, so hey, deal with it. Meanwhile, Pip, I am going to ask you to make another body check.
Okay. 17. I have passed body.
Okay, so as you are sprinting around this corner, you kind of enter a bit of a kind of T1000 style sprint here, because you're realizing that you've gone the wrong way, and that you need to get past these things, and they're actually quite close. You make a kind of very brief calculation in your mind that leaves you working out that if these creatures are the same as the creature that you observed, as in the kind of strange cube which you're now treating in your mind as being possibly sentient, to some capacity, then these things should actually, despite them looking kind of slightly wobbly, should actually be incredibly solid. And you realize that you can basically run and effectively kind of jump and push off of one of them, as a means of kind of leaping across the room and changing the direction of your run, which you do. It works. You take a jump, you push off, and you continue. And you're kind of out of the thing. As you turn the corner, you get towards it.
Did everybody see that? I did a cool thing.
It's fine. You did a cool thing. Put the cool thing on the mark sheet.
And everyone's stress gets reduced to 0 because we're just so like, wow, we're in good hands here.
Everyone's in good hands here. And then, yes, you make your way round, and the airlock is about open enough. It's basically getting to the point where, like, you could maybe try and start squeezing through it, but there's a risk you might stumble over. And meanwhile, the things are following you and will be here any moment. What are you going to do?
Okay, this is Bruce. This is Juice Springsteen's moment to shine. Juice. Oh my God.
Juice Springsteen.
Juice. Bruce.
Perfect.
Juice.
Juice Springsteen reaches into his back pocket and goes, "Hold on, let me get there." This is where my secret weapon comes into play. And he pulls out of his pocket the trinket, which is labeled male enhancement pills, shoddy. Cracks open the lid, downs the entire thing, and then starts trying to pull open
Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Okay.
test my strength on the
Yes,
door?
you can. Please,
Can I
please.
do it with advantage because of my pills?
I'm going to give you advantage because of the belief.
Placebo effect.
The placebo effect is going to give you advantage because
Not
as at this
placebo,
point,
it works, man. 6.
you got 6. Okay. Okay. So actually, in reaction to this, these doors do actually start to open much more quickly, allowing basically you've just saved yourself approximately a second of time, which in this context is quite a lot, because you think you have about 3 seconds before the things catch up with you, because they don't seem to be as keen on sprinting as you guys are. However, you can now get through the hole without worrying about falling over. So I'm assuming you're going to clamber in there, and then you are in an airlock, and you have the capacity to begin the other side of the sequence.
Cool. Okay. We're it. I clamber.
In, all of us.
Yeah, get in.
Press
Was
the
that
thing.
3 seconds?
As you get in, you basically realise that, you clamber through and you hammer the button and you go, and as the doors begin to shut, as soon as the doors begin to shut, all of these things, these strange autonomous things, simply just stop. They gently stop to a slow, and then their arms and legs just settle until they just become just flat sheets of wall, as far as you would know. Nothing to it. They've just stopped.
Seems safe. We could go back out.
Yeah.
And you then, the noise of gas and stuff as you enter into a ship of some sort. Now, you're coming out into what appears to be a galley of some sort. It looks like an old school style kitchen.
Petrol.
Coffee
Cuppa.
Okay. I'm just going to nip to the loo, and then in a second, we will adventure to wherever it is that you are now. So, you have arrived within a galley. Now this has you walk in and immediately it's weirdly homely. This feels like the kind of spaceship that used to be more popular a while ago, like maybe about 30 years ago. It's a little on the antiquated size there. It has some details, like some sort of weird some kind of cushiony beveling around the edge of some of the walls that's plasticky and maybe a bit dated. And also has some stuff you haven't seen for a while, stuff like mugs, like haven't really been used as traditionally in these things. These appear to be like
Mug
ceramic mugs.
Mug high.
Hey, Juice, this is all your wheelhouse, isn't it? You're into that elderly guy from those old reruns of that board game show that time.
Where there's cups, there's kettles. I'm sorry.
Oh,
like,
sorry.
We
That's
can,
true.
we can do this.
I feel
Yeah,
like
Yeah, there's
that's
definitely
the-
going to be the capacity for making drinks here. That's no mistake. But you can also see as you walk in and the airlock's shut behind you, you can't hear any noise. There's no trouble. It seems like those things really did stop chasing after you as soon as you got into the airlock and closed it. There is a wood effect table in the middle of the room, which on it has a bowl of plastic fruit, you presume. Kind of a weird kitsch thing you don't, again, see very commonly around. Like, there was periods where fruit were incredibly rare, but now it's not that easy to grow stuff. It's not that hard to grow stuff yourself using science, so it's a bit of an odd one. And there's a little note on the table just says, have fun on your adventure. And around the edge of this room, you can see this is a... this room basically has a series of windows around it, so you can see now throughout these windows. You kind of looking. It's kind of a kitchen area, staff slash hanging out area for a small spaceship. That this looks out onto space on most of the sides. In fact, you can see that. Most of the sides. Just gotta do. My brain's just melting a little bit. I don't know why. Why could that be a thing? Why could brain melt?
We're gonna
Can we see the place that we've just left on there, or are we still attached? Are we even moving? Can we see the station?
You're not moving, no. And you can see the station, yes. The station you can see to your left. You can see outside, and you can see again, like the kind of, you can see that the. Sorry, you have to give me a second to just catch my brain. You can see the oddly shaped pod-like, egg-like rooms that you started in. You can see one of those because you can recognize the little bubble windows on the edge. Although you recognize that actually that one is clearly identical from what you can see to the one that you woke up in, but that's not the same one. The one you woke up on was on the other side of the station. You come through. So it's clearly another one of those. And also you can see between that and you, there's also like another smaller room which connects, and you realize that those are obviously the rooms that the other doors in that ring connect to. But also you can see looking up that there's loads more of these, and they kind of alternate. It's kind of it's similar structure all the way up, and it looks like there might be some variances as it goes on, but mostly it's kind of a fairly formulaic little section. And
is this the music that's playing in the galley? It's like nice,
yeah,
little
absolutely.
radio.
There's a small like MP3 player, you believe.
Whoa!
It's
I used to download all my favorite songs on one of these.
Okay. Okay. So, what is it then? So you realise then, Bruce, that not Bruce, sorry, Juice.
How dare you?
I'd like you to make a sanity check.
That's quite. That's dancing away, losing. Okay.
Thinking about MP3s, going a
Wow.
little bit mad.
Okay, that wasn't a good roll. 98. So.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you to take stress, and I'm gonna ask you to roll for panic.
What? Okay. How does rolling for stress work?
Well, so basically, the way it works is you roll 2d10, and then you add your stress to it.
Okay. Stress.
So it's just two.
Oops.
It's just, yeah.
Nice. 3, 6. So that's 9 plus 4, 13.
Okay. 1 second, and I will let you know what's going on with Tom's stress. 13. All right.
So was that a panic?
Cowardice.
Was that a panic roll, Matt?
That was a panic roll. Yeah.
Okay, so that everyone else has to make a fear save.
Oh, Lord.
Because whenever
Okay.
a marine panics,
Okay. We can do that.
So wait, so I had
Is that because did you panic or did you just roll for
did.
panic?
He had to roll for panic. Actually,
So
no, you did. No, sorry, no. I've got this wrong. I apologise. I got this wrong. We're not at the. You're saving against panic.
yeah.
So,
So I failed my.
yeah. Sorry.
I
So you
failed-
roll 2d10s, and what do you get?
As
What do
in
you
for
get on
my,
2d10s?
for my and I got a 6 and a 3. I got 9 on those two.
So you just have to roll. You have to.
Is it percentage
So
again?
Did you roll over your current stress?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I probably shouldn't have made you do a panic check because you've actually just relieved one stress, so that's backfired on me. But hey, that's what happens when you're mean
Wonderful.
for no reason. I wasn't being mean for no reason though. You kind of almost had a freak out for a second there, because you were looking at this device and you were feeling nostalgic, and then you were trying to scratch away at some of that nostalgia in a more meaningful way to kind of think, oh, what was my favourite song on this thing? And you can't remember. And then you basically realise that these memories are kind of a little bit unhinged in a way. They exist, but you can't work out where they came from. So you do know what this is, but you don't know why. And that obviously is a little bit as a human, a little bit disconcerting.
Right.
So I'm actually going to ask you to add another stress, actually. So you can remove the stress, but then add one. So just
So it evens
you know,
out.
yeah, just because I messed up doesn't mean I'm not gonna get away with that. Come on, it's ridiculous. So yes.
Okay.
Right. Okay. It's tricky. This. How's everyone doing at home? Is everybody all right? I hope everyone's all right. There's loads of people watching live. Yeah. Very rude. Very, very rude.
While Matt is looking at things, I'm just gonna start eating the plastic fruit. That feels like a thing that an android would be interested in. Just like,
What is this human thing called fruit?
exactly.
Ooh,
Like,
more
this is
plasticky than I expected.
tasty, I guess. I mean, I
just
never
gonna-
thought it was much cost before, but
Are you just going to let the android eat plastic fruit? The androids the androids sleep of electric plastic fruit?
Matt, that's. I think that's. It's not. I don't think that's a real fruit.
oh, do you want some?
No. We can't. We can't eat plastic fruit. It's insufficiently juicy.
Okay, well, I'll leave it here, and then if someone changes their mind, then they can. Okay.
Yeah, that's polite. We definitely. Yeah.
And
Thanks.
while this unhinged
Thanks for
interaction
looking out.
is happening,
It's not unhinged. It's just a bit awkward.
I'm just staring at an MP3 player, going like, "Oh wait, I was doing something with my eyes there, but you can't even see it." I was just looking at it like in a corner, just vacantly staring while you have conversations about fruit.
Do we need to reboot Juice? Like what's happened
Reboot the juice.
over there?
Reboot the
Okay.
juice.
So within this galley, you can investigate the galley further. You can try and take a better look on the outside of through the windows in front of you to try and get a better sense of what's happening outside, or you can investigate further within this vehicle ship thing.
Kettle.
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 Yep. You don't even
Alright.
know what fruit is okay to eat and what fruit is okay to eat. Like, how do you have such strong feelings about tea?
I
Wait,
just
sorry,
want to
that's.
help you.
Oh. Thanks.
Yeah.
Let's find the kettle. Let's find
Okay,
the kettle.
you
Let's
manage to
put
find a
everyone-
kettle and you begin preparing a cup of tea.
Let me get roll a fear check. No. Lovely cup of tea. Checking through cupboards, looking for bits and bobs, seeing if there's any sugar or any like milk substitutes.
Biscuits.
Or any
biscuits.
huge structural alabaster monsters that are going to unpeel themselves with the wall.
Oh, I
That
forgot
was
to mention
horrible, right?
the cuboid is in the kitchen.
Oh.
Can I just like
The
if
white
we could
cuboid
just-
thing.
I'm gonna like sort of try and like whisper to those two. So, Oxy, Juice,
Yep.
in the not adventure area, it wasn't an area. It was like a face, but like how you two look a lot of the time. It was really sad.
Oh God, do I look sad?
You did before, but now you've got like your tea mission. You're doing really well. So
Can
yeah.
I just, you looked through a lot of that feeds and stuff. Like, you know that, and I kind of gesture awkwardly at the little white cube behind us. Did you see the cube in any of those things, or was the cube like? I'm just wondering, could it be the camera? Is it watching us?
Allow me to scan my memory banks.
You scan your memory banks. I'll
Okay.
Yeah.
through a little bit.
You scan through some of the things. You begin looking through, and you find a bunch of interesting ones. You find a group of people who look like some real do-gooders. Again, a combination of humans and/or androids. It's hard to tell sometimes, but that's fine. You see them feeding some children, handing in some raiders to a local law enforcement agency of some sort, and then being digested alive in acid. You look some people raiding a derelict, and then buying themselves a ship, and then being executed by pirates. You see a bunch of different things, a bunch of different deaths, but something captures your eye when you watch Misadventures Melted. A group of 3 quite odd-looking alien creatures that you're sure you've never seen before. And you realise that later on they're refining some water for a community, they're dealing with a hull breach, and then they're melting in some sort of horrific atmospheric disaster. But there's a point early on in their little montage of things where they manage to successfully soften the crash of a ship using some gung-ho intellect and steering to effectively change the use of an engines to make a ship that they're currently on crash a lot more gently. And you realise a couple of things about this. You realise that, first of all, one of the shots of this like tiny brief montage of a spaceship crashing in slow motion is actually within something that looks exactly like the galley that you're currently in. And also, you notice that you can see within the reflection of one of the windows, you can spot, enhance, there is an alabaster cuboid, almost exactly like, or very much like the one that is currently following you around, in the position that would equate to it being some sort of camera.
Okay, I impart this information and add, but also perhaps the cube crashed the kitchen. Who knows? It might be better for humans to interpret this knowledge.
From what's going on here, this is an adventure, right? Right?
Allegedly.
So we're just having a break for a tea, which I definitely wholeheartedly approve. And what you're saying is that people have been crash landing this thing?
Some better than others, I would say. Some more successfully than others.
Okay.
Juice suddenly snaps out of the MP3 player trance and boldly asserts the need to get out of this dang place, because
it does make the idea less attractive when you say it.
Pretty spooked. We're seeing, so there's a lot of continuity. Imagine that Juice is saying this. I know it's painful, but there's all this continuity between all these people getting, crashing and being killed by giant alabaster things. We gotta do it, but we gotta learn from their mistakes and get out of here on a good adventure, because that's Juice has been piecing it together this whole time because he's got an intellect of 45, which I hope doesn't directly track with IQ.
I was gonna say. But the thing is, all of those things crashed because they were moving, right? And we're not moving yet. So maybe if we start moving, that's where the problems lie.
Right. So you're saying time for an infinite tea break.
I just
The
like
tea
if what we're
is
saying is
finished brewing.
It's
Also,
T
thank you.
minus.
The T minus. Well, no. Also, thank you to people watching along in Twitch for clocking that the audio is doing weird things and telling me exactly why. I fixed it now. The echo is gone. Be gone, foul echo. We barely knew you. So the tea is finished brewing. Oxy, you brew up a cup for yourself. Do you want to? I mean, well, you pour a cup for yourself, but you've made a pot because you actually found a teapot within the cupboard, which again, an old artifact. You haven't seen one of these for a long time. In fact, you cannot remember the last time you saw one. Are you going to offer a cup of tea to anybody else? I don't think androids drink tea.
And,
I don't know.
I'd love a cuppa.
You can drink this. It is less plastic than the fruit was, but I don't know how your pipes work.
I will. I can try. If I start fizzing, maybe that's our cue to stop.
Okay. I like the way you risk your operating system for the sake of a cup of tea. That's something I can respect. So I pour cups of tea for everyone, like gesturing about whether they want sugar and milk and all this nonsense. And
I slip another one of my male enhancement pills into the tea before drinking it because I'm just steeling myself for the adventure ahead.
I mean, I do have some Areca hat. Areca nut pills here as well. I don't know.
It's probably the same thing. So weirdly, you actually have access to a lot of these things. You have access to probably some form of synthesized sugar and something that resembles milk in a long life form. You're not sure what kind of milk it is, but at the end of the day, it's a long time in the future and people don't really ask these questions anymore. Milk is just something white that you put in hot drinks sometimes, or apparently you do. Again, you're not really sure a lot of the details of this stuff. You know about it, but you're not sure. And as you take a sip of the tea, Oxy, I'm going to ask you to make a sanity save.
Okay. So we did 65 out of 40. That's bad.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you to take 2 stress, and I'm going to just say that you are absolutely overwhelmed in this instance. Because of the fact that nothing you've wanted more since you woke up was to have a hot cup of tea, and it's now upon sipping a cup of tea for the first time today, you have absolutely no sensory memory of this, and there's a huge disconnect within your brain of you realizing that this was something you know about it, you know how to make it, you've made it, you are aware that you have prepared it correctly, you're aware that it's exactly as it's supposed to be. You're aware that you love tea. You're aware that you know what tea is. But you're also aware that tea is something from hundreds of years ago that people don't really have anymore. And you're very much aware. A part of your body, a much deeper part of your consciousness, informs you quite rapidly that you've never had this before. And it sends your brain into a momentary disarray of confusion. Or at least it does for a second, until you feel something very gentling in the back of your brain that just sort of like creeps back in, and you feel reassured, and then you're just enjoying a hot cup of tea.
These are all the emotions I go through every time I have a cup of tea.
Honestly, I've stopped offering to make them for Tom now. It's just annoying. It takes hours. They're like, all right, yeah, okay, cool.
It's like that bit in Ratatouille. It's like.
As you look around the kitchen, Juice and Oxy, this is a fairly well-stocked kitchen food-wise. I'm just going to say, I'm going to go out there, the android currently known as Matt Lees, that you're not, especially as somebody who tried to eat plastic fruit, you're not somebody who's going to be looking at food availability. It's not a badly stocked galley. You don't recognize any of the brands. They all look like brands of things. Again, though, very old style. Not the sort of modern thing. It looks like you sort of tuned into a version of reality from 20, 30 years ago. But again, it's all kind of strangely off-brand stuff. But again, you're drinking a cup of tea, and it appears to be a cup of tea. You're not feeling unwell or anything like that. So as far as you currently know, there's nothing wrong with what you've just done. What would you like to do?
I think, well, I'll let Orcsy decide, but I think we should have a little explore down the nearest corridor I can see on the diagram. We've got some routes to explore. Is that a good idea?
I think we need to figure out where we are. We've had to. That's reassuring, apart from when it's terrifying. So we're ready for things now, right? The thing said adventure. The thing tried to kill us when we didn't adventure enough. Like, I'm
It
worried
is time
about
to
just
begin
standing
your
still.
adventure.
Oh no.
Oh dear.
That doesn't sound good.
We should definitely start adventuring.
I think we need to. So what is adventure? What's an adventure? It's probably not having a really nice marmot on toast.
I want to know if that
Just
works.
because
Does this
those
work?
things are available.
Does this make it all? Does this do anything? I don't
did,
know.
yeah.
Maybe not.
Not for us, but
Not for you. Didn't do anything for you.
Hey.
I mean, we could hear it. You sounded great.
Yeah, but I'm trying to work out if it. No, it just sounds the same. Okay. Oh, I want to make it do a funny sound for fun. Do 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 do. Adventure time becomes closer.
I love how it just sounds the same for us.
It might not sound any different for anyone else. I don't know.
People quite like it.
I love the idea
Chat
that,
likes it.
like, in my head, you're doing it like a supermarket announcement. Like, bing, bing, bing.
Adventure time becomes closer. Go
So-
to aisle 4 for
Honestly,
instant
I think-
toxic gas
I think-
cloud death.
Okay, cool.
I think we need
So
to get ahead of
basically,
the adventure.
Yes,
I don't think we
yeah.
want to wait until it's kicking us. I think
Cool.
we want to
so
get ahead of it.
what? That's just boomed out of the speakers within the galley, and it sounds like from the reverberations coming down the
Chat's
corridors that
going
lead
wild,
off to
telling
this
you
room.
it's still on.
Oh, it's still on. Okay. Okay. Not anymore.
Please finalize your purchases.
I can see adventure cleanup request on Dairy Isle. My brain, stop, Matt. Oh, stop. It's still on. Oh gosh, sorry.
So, shall we? I mean, do you think we should try and ask for some directions, or is there anything that you two think is obvious where we should go? Like what?
I mean, probably, generally speaking, my experience of adventures is not the kitchen. So anywhere is good. But we haven't tried talking to this weird, ominous, adventure-loving thing. Like, do you know where the adventure is?
Wait, the adventure.
Je voudrais une adventure.
S'il vous plaît.
Okay.
A
I'm hoping
favour.
now that you can't hear any more of that stuff. Has that all stopped? Okay.
We'll find out.
I'm so sorry. What have I done? No, it hasn't stopped? How has that happened? How?
That slight ominous echo.
Oh.
Little echo for a snack. I think. Look,
Yeah.
and
I moved the wrong knob. I think it's gone now.
I did that earlier with the enhancement. Juice Springsteen is mimes the reloading of a gun because I thought I had a gun originally, but I don't. And
Just
goes,
like cocking your elbows.
yeah, that's a very Juice Springsteen thing to do. Let's get some adventure. And I just start striding off towards the nearest available door with a real spring in my step because I'm tired of this inaction and Juice Springsteen gets stuff done.
I feel like at some point in the recent past, Juice will have gone, still got these guns, baby.
is that Juice Springsteen only has the strength of 21, so he's going, got these guns, baby. It's pathetic.
Like a T-Rex.
Yeah. Let's go.
So what did you just say, Tom? You just said...
So, Juice wants action. And if this dang voice in the clouds wants adventure, I'll give him adventure. And I start striding off down the corridor towards the nearest available exit to this room.
Okay.
Post haste.
Okay, so your options are with this. You have basically, I think I'm not sure I shared it with Ava. 1 second. I'll share an updated thing in a second because it's Juice. It's Juice with the legs. So
it's Juice with the legs.
Juice with the legs. You have an option here. There's a corridor that leads off to the left, or you can go straight on, which will lead you past the airlock doorway that you. And there's a corridor that goes off down quite a way, and then bends off.
Let's go down that one.
You're gonna go down the long corridor. Okay.
Long corridor. So
Okay.
Orksy and Matt both just watch me like stride off all the way down the corridor like this.
Why does he do this?
Why does he walk like that?
I don't feel like I can say much considering I just shouted to Tannoy.
In French.
In French. In very bad French. What is French? I can't remember French.
I feel like, so does the camera bot only, like, because we've only got one, so is it just with us now? Like, could we distract it and Juice can go exploring? Or,
I don't know. Will we be able to convince it that we are more adventure than Juice right now?
hello!
Adventure buses coming.
I mean, you never see it moving. It just is in places.
That's
So
fine.
currently it's still with you in the kitchen.
Right.
But in a second it may not be.
Should we follow Juice then? Or shall we just wait?
I think we can do it slightly less dramatically, but I do think we need to do the things that will seem more like an adventure. And honestly, I think that this macho weird styling might actually be more adventure than more biscuits.
Okay.
Okay. Then we're gonna follow where Juice has bravely slash
Just
stupidly
gonna look more
strode.
carefully around while we're doing it.
So
But like I'm trying to imitate the walk just in case that's what humans really do. Like a real like wide boy kind of thing.
Oi, oi, oi.
Alright.
Let's do some adventure.
Oh.
What do
Okay.
what do I see?
okay. So as you walk away past the airlock, past the galleys, you can see down to your right there is a small room at the end of another short corridor, and it looks like a bunch of computer screens down in there. A bunch of computer screens. Just to talk about these corridors briefly as well, it's like you're walking down these and it's incredibly archaic in a strange way. Most modern ship design is a lot cleaner than this, and obviously not as clean as the incredible alabaster whiteness of weirdness of the place you've just been, but there's all sorts of pipes and vents, and this is antiquated. It's knobbly. It's strange. It's a little bit at times the corridors in this place kind of get a little bit compressed, a bit tight. And this is one such place. You can go down this corridor to get to this little room full of computers, it looks like, but it's not. It's a bit of a tight squeeze. It's like it looks like there's boxes like kind of piled up in the corridor, but there aren't. It's just sort of part of the walls. It's just stuff. It's a bit odd, especially because of the fact that there's just tons of pipes and stuff, and you're not really sure what could be in these pipes.
Okay. Well, sorry. Juice looks down the corridor and goes, if I were to draw a plan of a ship before doing a stream of an RPG, I would put the weapons array up there. I don't think that that's going to be useful at this point, so I'll continue walking down this corridor and see what else is down there.
Okay. You do have you do have some knowledge of this ship somehow, Juice. It's I'm gonna need you to make a sanity roll save for me.
Oh no. I fail my sanity check. So do I get more stress?
Yeah, you get more stress. You're gonna get
I've lost my pen.
another point of stress, we'll say. Just a simple point would be fine.
My character sheet is running out of battery.
Because you feel like you've been here before, but that's impossible.
Is there a point at which, like, the number of stress triggers something? Like, should I be keeping an eye on that to tell you, like, if
No.
Okay.
No, it's at some point I will ask you to make a panic check, and if you've not got much stress at all, you'll be fine. If you've got a lot of stress, you might not be fine.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, you don't need to go down there because you've been down there before, but you're kind of stressed out by this. But I can tell you that the end of this is a pokey, cramped little room with a wall shelled with monitors and screens, and it's the place you would go to take control of the ship's weapons manually. It's also a point where there will be another viewport of sorts, so you can actually physically see out of the window into space, which again that's a bit of a rarity on this ship. You are, you're not really sure why, but you've definitely got familiarity with this ship, although it's fuzzy in some areas. So you continue down the corridor, and at the end of the corridor, you basically have a right turn off to a door which is marked as the barracks. And then further up, just around the corner, you have the living quarters. And then beyond that, you have some signage on the wall, pointing further down the corridor to thruster maintenance.
Sure. Well, before I do any of that, I might shout down the corridor, do you want to join me on this cool adventure or what? To Orcsy and Matt Lees.
I mean, we're literally following you.
Oh, you're following me? I thought I was striding off on my own.
Oh no, we've been sauntering after you.
We've just been going slow.
I like the idea that I just turn round and I shout that anyway, even though you're literally right in front of me. Okay, I thought you were still back in the...
No, that's okay.
As you turn around to shout, you basically almost shout directly into their faces, having been so discombobulated by your own sort of existential concerns that you didn't realise they were actually following you. Although just behind them in the corridor is the white cube, which is just sort of there.
I hate the white cube. Not a fan. Okay, so
Fair.
I feel like we should go into the barracks because, as you've seen in your many memories, not memories, Matt, you've seen the people befalling fates, you've seen them befalling terrible fates at the hands of horrible monsters. So I feel like arming ourselves to the teeth is a good start for an adventure. Especially now I'm jacked up with all this mail and enhancement truck.
Yeah.
That sounds reasonable.
Tom, can you make a body save?
Oh no. Fail.
You are indeed jacked up with all of the pills.
Oh no.
Yeah. So moving into the barracks, you discover a fairly well-stocked room. There's a whole bunch of stuff within here. There's a weapons cage that, as you would expect, is currently locked, but the keys, again, you know where the keys are. Concerning. The other players, Oxy and the android currently known as Matt Lees don't really clock it, but you're also clocking from them that they don't have this kind of ability of knowledge of this place that you do. You kind of know about it in ways that they don't. You have a quick glance as a Marine. You could quickly assess if are you interested in assessing the weaponry, or there's other stuff in here. There's some EVA suits. There appears to be some other kind of just general equipment. Scanners.
I'll assess the other equipment, the scanners and such. I feel like the weapon, as Juice Springsteen always says, a gun is a gun, and that's all he says.
But you might also need like ammo for that, etc.
Okay, well, I'll assess.
It's an ornament.
I'll assess everything.
Okay.
At this point, you think you're doing that androidy thing of like quickly and you're actually just like staring.
Just proudly, just like.
Okay, Orksy and Matt Lees the android, you see a man very slowly picking up things and looking at them and putting them down as if he might be about to have a mental breakdown of some sort. What would you like to do?
Me or? Sorry.
No. Orksy.
Actually, I would like to just tell just can you just do you want to just like tool up a bit?
Okay.
And we'll work out. Did we see something back there that was thrusters? Like, we've got to decide whether we're going to try and take this ship somewhere. Like, are we going to try and get away from this thing? Like, does that sound more adventure? Like, Juice being tooled up, I'm not sure why I would trust that, but I feel like he's got a better chance than we do. So what do you think, Matt Lees? Do we want to go and try and undock and step or do we just want to assume that whatever's going to come for us is already on the ship? God, that's a horrible thought.
Well, this technology, these creatures, for want of a better word, seem to be able to just appear, and melt out of the walls. There were some things like the cardboard boxes that were actually part of the wall that doesn't feel right with my knowledge of human ships. I've never seen things like that before, so I feel like that's something that maybe we keep an eye out for, those weird things that might transform. But also something I've been thinking is that if there's a camera device, there's the capacity for someone or something to be watching. So the other thing we could do is try and communicate through that, like ask for help or supplies or for something. I don't know.
Yeah. How do we access the Twitch stream for this?
I feel like we could maybe send out a message every now and again, just sort of, I sort of turn to the camera and wave my hand at this cube. Hello.
Well, the cube is currently like within sight. You turn around and the cube is basically with you. So what would you like to say to the cube?
Hello. So if anybody is watching this and would like to maybe help us for the good of entertainment, please feel free to, I don't know if you know our coordinates, I'm not sure, but like if you could like send us some supplies or something at some point, if you're watching, like, and you want to root for us, we're good. We're like Juice. We've got Oxy. We've got me. I know hydroponics. I can teach you stuff about your plants and your water supply. But I don't know if this is going through to anyone. But maybe, hopefully. But at some point in the future, this will maybe pay dividends.
You can feel something.
Bell to subscribe.
You can feel something within the back of your neck. A slight tingle. And then that tingle sort of very gently becomes a sensation of knowledge. Not so much voices, but it's kind of a fractured thing. You have some messages of no. You have some messages of you are on your own. Until you hear a resounding voice that simply says, "The Q would like to learn more about these plants."
Cool. Okay, so, crap. I would, wait, what did I said in exchange for help. That's a thing that I said. Definitely said that. Okay, so things about plants. There are species of orchid that grow in Glasgow on the pavements, because that is a habitat that they like. There's a plant fact. Now help me.
That's good.
As you explain this, as you explain this, you are again unsettled by the knowledge that comes out of your mouth that you're not really sure where it came from, and you get a sense that actually it's a weird buzzing in your neck, and you recite something that doesn't appear to come from your own data reserves, but now is a part of your own data reserves. At that point, confused by what has happened, a voice within the room simply introduces itself. "Oh, hello! I'm glad you're all here." You turn to see a rather gentle-looking chap, well enough dressed, quite meek, a little on the short side. "We should probably be getting on with an adventure, I would think."
That's what I've been saying.
He introduces himself as Herb. He's your ship's assistant, and he's here to help you in any way you could possibly need.
I know about herbs. Put him in water. Be fine.
So, can we ask Herb? Just Herb, what's going on? Just give us the skinny here. What's happening? I'm deeply confused.
We're on an adventure. We should probably get going.
Okay. Where should we go, Herb?
The adventure has begun.
Oh no.
You
Not this
hear
again.
you hear a bang down the corridor from where you came. And now you hear another bang. What are you gonna do?
I
I
am
think
gonna.
the adventure is over there.
Another bang.
I'm gonna pull a gun
Creak.
from the wall. Oh no! And also ammo for that gun, using my good gun knowledge, and start running down the corridor to the source of the creaky bangs.
Okay, I'm going to want you to, because you've been looking at the guns, I can tell you that there are a number of guns here. There is not a lot of ammo. There is only a decent amount of ammo. You've got like a couple of clips for a pistol. There are better weapons there, but there's very little ammo. You're talking about like a clip each. It's not a very well-stocked armory. It's a lot of stuff, but it's the military stuff which you've been looking at is not very well stocked currently.
Right. Well, I guess I'll take the pistol and a little bit of ammo for that then.
Okay. You start running down the corridor, you hear the creaking continue, this horrible guttural metal sound as you push yourself down the corridor, can just about scurry down the corridor back towards the galley where it was. And you can see in the galley, you peek your head around and you can basically see that the glass orb-like airlock mechanism, which was completely transparent before you got into it, you can see now that some of the creatures which were chasing you earlier, there are more of them. There are about 6 to 8 of them, and they are prying open the first airlock door.
Oh dearsies.
We need to go. We need to go. We need
Yes.
to go.
I'd like to, if there's a crowbar or anything within easy reach, I would like to grab just something to for protection, that kind of.
Yeah, easy.
grapplers.
Easy.
In that case, I grab a crowbar for protection.
A handy crowbar. Ta-da.
So I'm gonna run towards thruster control and try and coil down that with that one of the little tubes that goes towards the thing. There was something labeled thrusters. I'm gonna try and see if I can figure out a way to pilot this while shouting behind me to just like get the airlock, get us detached. Like get us detached from whatever that thing is. I don't want those things in here.
Oh, absolutely.
Said
No
a lot
problem at all.
calmly than I meant to say it.
Herb says, "Oh, of course, yes, we can do that. We can do that. Very good." And begins to kind of just saunter off down the corridor, not an especially fast rate, down towards the corridor leading up to the weapons control. And as you follow him, bewildered by his nonchalance, there's a small control panel which is down that corridor that he begins to tap away at, and you hear the gentle hiss of the ship beginning to detach from the airlock.
That's a good. So where's the Herb? Where's the pilot? How do we steer this thing?
Oh, I am the pilot for now.
Great.
If you...
Take us somewhere.
Certainly. Taking you somewhere.
Can you take us to the safest adventure?
As soon as you said take me somewhere, the Herb basically kind of freezes. Literally freezes. Just stops. And you can hear a whir, an ungodly, weird whir coming from the opposite direction of all of the other noises and the clunks. And you begin feeling like things are about to be weird, and effectively, moments later, reality starts to blur a little bit, and you realize that you are now about to enter warp speed, which is not ideal because you're not in cryostasis. So generally speaking, you might have maybe you haven't got long. You've got about 10 seconds, I'll say, before you enter warp.
Okay. But do we know this over by the airlock?
Yes, you recognize you recognize you recognize the noise. You've heard it before. It's a very loud noise, and you've never heard it this loud before. But you've been on ships before you've been on ships near ships that have entered warp. It's a very distinctive noise being made, so you're aware that the ship you're on is probably entering warp, and you're also aware that that is not necessarily a good thing.
Yourselves.
Can we go somewhere slowly, Herb? Herb, can you hear me? Slow adventure?
Herb remains static, fixed.
Oh no.
Oh god.
He snaps out of it. He's back. And it says, approaching somewhere in T-minus 20 seconds.
Herb, slow down.
Herb, slow down.
Slow down.
Slower.
Would lying down help us?
We've had the cup of tea, and now
Like,
it's
is
time
this-
for a lie down.
He
Is
says,
this a lying down thing?
he says, slow. Warp. Warp speed 1 would be the slowest warp.
Could we walk?
Could we not warp?
Walk, not warp. No? Oh.
Okay, give me a second. You've got time is dilating, which means now
Okay.
you have about 3 seconds before it occurs, but it's going to feel like about 2 minutes.
Okay.
Huh.
Does anyone have like knowledge of this? Like any sort of scientific systems? Any like I have computers and 0G. Maybe I could like do
Combine the two.
something.
I've
Yeah.
just got gun and art. So
Does one of you have jury rigging?
Yes, I do. actually.
Maybe we could like try and improvise a solution really quickly for like surviving this.
A solution to jumping into going to warp without being secure. Like, what are we gonna?
Holding
what are
on.
we aiming to do?
we could break
What we-
the thrusters. Then we're not going to go anywhere.
I don't know. Did we not hear a story about the thrusters and stopping a crash landing at one point?
That's
like,
true.
I feel
Yeah.
like thrusters are a good thing to have. I think
Yeah.
like thrust power is different from warp power. I don't know. I like to pretend I know more about science because I'm a scientist, but this is not my field of expertise.
So I
I'm
feel
a
like
geologist.
we know, Dungeon Matt, not me, Matt.
Dungeon Matt, I like it.
Do we know what happens to like a human body if it goes into warp? Like, basically, I'm trying to figure out like, because I think I'll probably be fine because I'm an android, but like, I want to know whether it's a thing that we could like try and jury rig ourselves out of, or whether it's like a 0G or a computing thing, or like that kind of thing.
Well, you've got
And
all the
also,
time in the
is it
world
gonna
to think
be
about it, or at least it feels like it. In the split second before you enter warp, it does seem to be about an hour in your perception. Now,
Okay.
I'd like you to tell me one at a time, starting with Ava, what you think about during that time, as you are frozen within your own body, effectively unable to move, but time is passing tremendously slowly in a way that allows you to think.
I am thinking about trying to remember back to school and what people said about the state of human brains entering into warp outside cryosleep. It is not a pleasant memory, but I am trying to recall what was said about the best way to kind of. There was, I'm sure that like once we went on a day trip on a little spaceship, and there was emergency procedures, and there was someone up at the front who kind of like told me where the exits were and told me what to do in case of accidentally reaching warp, and I ignored it at the time. I was a little school kid. I was poking around with my little rock collection that foreshadowed my future career.
Well, they talk a lot
completely
about
ignoring the advice.
a lot of the problems seem to relate to sanity, generally speaking, or at least that's the expert's opinion. Like the stories you've always been told officially by teachers and the like are that people go insane, or people have problems with their brain function. But the stories you've heard wider than that seem a little stranger. It seems like it's not so much about perception, it's actually about reality maybe going a bit funny. But a lot of that has been explained away over the years by as being the equivalent of scary stories or folklore, like children telling stories or people telling stories about what happened to people when something went wrong with the warp drive. But there's a whole variety of things that people have said have happened, but really it's you don't know. Like it's all hearsay. It's all secondhand.
But I'm not scared of my brain getting cooked. I'm scared of
You're a bit scared of that. Yeah, you're a bit scared of that. So maybe you spend a bit of time within that. Maybe you should actually have a fear save. That'd be a good idea. You should do a fear
I
save.
mean, I definitely looked that right in the eye there.
Yeah, you did.
Fear. My fear is 25, and I rolled 42.
Okay.
That's a higher
That's
number.
fair.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you to add 2 stress as you spend maybe the last 20 minutes of perception time within this state, just trapped within your own head, fixating on the possibility of becoming tomato goop at some point in the near future. Tom, what are you thinking about during this hour?
I'm thinking about how safe I'm going to be and how secure and resilient Juice Springsteen is against the impossible. If Juice knows anything, it's that he can survive a tragedy on board a ship destined to go who knows where. I gaze boldly out the window, steeling myself for what is soon to happen. Is that reasonable?
Okay. Yeah, that's great. So during this process, you refer to yourself in the third person a number of times, and you've got a lot of time on in your head, basically, and you realise that your name, Juice Springsteen, is remarkably familiar, and you realise that actually it's a riff on the name of a popular Earth musician, Bruce Springsteen, from the 19th, 20th century, and you are aware that you don't really know who that is. And again, you start thinking about the MP3 player earlier, and you know that Bruce Springsteen was an artist. You can't think of any of his songs. You can't think why you would be called that. And it starts very slowly to infringe upon every aspect of your reality, at the point where you realize that you don't really know who you are. So can you roll me a sanity check, please?
Matt, I seem to remember not thinking any of that and just thinking about how cool and good I was. But...
Well, that's what you started to, but then the names start to bounce around your head, you know?
I did not succeed. 72. I failed.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna say I'd like you to take 2 stress. In fact, I'm going to say take 3 stress, please, because you have fundamentally now realised that your existence, who you are, might not actually be real to a degree.
Cool.
Because you may be a parody of a false memory, which is a bit concerning. And I think on that, even though you're trapped within your own body, trying to stare and feel cool and feel relaxed, what's your stress at the moment?
7.
7. Okay. Okay.
Are you gonna make Juice Springsteen have an existential crisis?
let's do that. Yeah. Let's have a panic check.
So
let's
I roll
have a panic
2
check, please.
2d10.
Roll 2d10.
Add them together. Okay.
Yes.
3, 9. That's 14 total. No, sorry, 12 total.
Okay. 3 and 9.
14.
12. Okay.
Not 14.
You succeed.
Oh, good.
You relieve 1 stress. Why don't you tell me how Juice manages to reconcile himself with this reality?
Juice is really concerned about, is reeling at this possibility of not being himself, not being the cool, this cool character that had built up in his head, thinking that, oh man, is my reality built on fiction? And then he looks at his cool pair of aviators and goes, no one could ever be this cool. And then puts them back on and stares back out the window.
That makes sense.
They're like at a weird angle this time.
Well, you don't put them back on. You put them back on in your mind because you're physically unable to move.
Yeah, quite right. Okay.
But you're exactly the sort of person who would be able to do that in your mind, so it's fine. Pip, how do you spend your hour?
I think that I would spend it analysing all of the footage that came from the scan of the high score table, and try and look for some patterns or trends or things like that. So if there's anything we can learn from that, or any bit of a steer that we can get from that, I would like to try that.
Okay, cool. Well, while you're doing that, you recognise a couple of things. You recognise again that some of the earlier, some of the people who scored worse in the grand scheme of things had indeed died in this ship, you would guess. You're not entirely sure about where in this ship, but this ship has quite a distinctive decor, and you recognize features, and basically by cross-referencing different bits and cross-referencing against your own memories of what little of the ship you've seen so far, you are sure that many people died while on this ship. Some appearing to be killed in some sort of accident involving what looks like a warp engine. Some dying at the hands of some creatures. You're not sure what. When you unredacted the footage earlier, you only unredacted the footage specifically on that individual clip. So you still have some of the other clips you see which have the white blurred out sections of the images, but you're pretty confident that those, knowing what you know now, you're pretty confident you can extrapolate from those to work out that the rest of those images are the same things were coming for those creatures. However, with some of the other stuff, you don't know what they are, and you're pretty confident that the creatures that attacked these the crews on the ship that you're currently on, you're pretty sure they weren't those creatures, because these are, you can see the edges of claws, and they're definitely not white. They're kind of a much darker color, and they look very much more extraterrestrially traditional rather than bits of moving IKEA weirdness. So you can I'll have a think about that, but basically I will allow you to focus some of your cycles on looking at that footage, and I'll work out what you can work out from that by seeing if you can cross-reference the pixelated stuff to work out something more about that. But you work out that actually it's cool, because you work out that, hey, lots of people died in the room that you escaped from, but also lots of people die on the ship that you're currently on at the hands of something that, arguably, from the facial expressions of the people about to be attacked by them, is far more terrifying and horrible. So I'd like you to make a fear check. Even though you are an android, you're probably fine.
Okay. You'd better believe I'm not fine.
Okay, what do you roll?
I rolled 96. Oh, hang on, no, 99. Shit.
99.
Sorry. That's a
it's fine. I think
fail.
I didn't say at the start of this, but because this is like, I think anyone watching this with family should probably know that it's going to be a little on the softer side. I should mention this probably before the stream started, but it is also a horror sci-fi RPG, so it's not necessarily suitable for very young children. So I can't remember what happens.
Fail.
I think that's a critical fail, yeah.
It is, yeah.
Oh no.
Right.
But androids can't feel fear. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I should never.
Now I have to remind myself
fear app.
what happens when you get a critical fail. Critically fail a save, you have to make a panic check. Okay. So actually, this could actually be okay for you. So you've critically failed the save. I'm going to ask you to give yourself 3 stress, because in this circumstance, androids don't really get frightened of stuff like this. Androids traditionally don't get frightened. But in this circumstance, you've kind of let your guard down in the fact that you've felt so invulnerable to the idea of fear that you have immersed yourself within this footage and immersed yourself within the detailed analysis of all of these people in situations much like yours, being murdered by creatures that are terrifying and unknown, whilst also trapped within your body in time stasis and unable to move. And you've kind of accidentally, you've poured yourself a really hot bath and then got into it completely before realizing that the bath is really hot, and you've suddenly gone, oh gosh, and you're having the android equivalent of a bit of a panic. So you are in fact going to make a panic roll. So you roll 2d10 and let me know what you get, whether or not you get under or above your current stress value.
So just add them together.
Mm-hmm.
So it was 3 and 2, so that's 5, and I'm currently at 8 stress, so I'm under.
Okay.
Oh no.
That's fine. It just means you're gonna panic.
Okay. I thought under was good, and I forgot about stress.
Yeah. So you're gonna roll 2d10 plus your stress. So
Okay. Add them all together.
yeah.
So 3 plus 4 is 7. Add 8 is 15. 15 is good, right?
15 is
I
not
know
bad,
that-
yeah.
I know that 30 plus is heart attack. So
Yeah, instant death. Instant death is 30 plus. Just you're dead. You're not dead. Congratulations. However, you are suffering now from the android equivalent of hallucinations.
That sounds bad.
Okay. For a while now, you're going to have trouble distinguishing between reality and fantasy, effectively. And that is a result of you just immersing yourself in this footage of all these different... You've got these, like, basically, you've had this kind of system-wide panic at a moment which you were processing all of this information. And now it's like... It's a bit like the equivalent of waking up somewhere in a bed and not being sure where you are for a split second until you remember you're on holiday or at a friend's house, etc. It's that, but extended in the fact that you've seen all this footage of all of these people dying and being killed in this space that you're currently in that you don't really know yet. And now, like, your sense of perception of reality versus these memories is going to be a bit connected for a little while.
Okay.
How long? I know. So, that is the end of your hour of excitement before you jump into hyperspace without protection. How's that going to go for you guys? Well, let's find out. And I'm going to use a fantastic little thing. I should say I'm going to give these a shout out because I think Mothership is pretty rad, and I've never played it before. I played it once before as a player, but I really like it. But the extra books they've got that they sent me, Dead Planet and Pound of Flesh, have like scenarios and stuff, but also just loads of charts and loads of like things you can use to do rolls and stuff. I like it a lot. All right, 22, which is okay. You black out effectively. The last thing you remember is what it must have felt like ship entering warp. This period of being stuck in your own head continues for an intense short burst. So rather than an hour of like long luxuriate thinking of sitting in your own heads and worrying about death or your own reality or all of that horrible jazz, it's like an incredibly intense dream, a little blast of hyper-realistic thoughts for a couple of minutes in which all of this stuff mulls around in your heads. And you are convinced and stressed. I mean, Juice, you are really hanging on a thin line here. You've managed to really double down and convince yourself that you are this person, whereas deep down, a part of your mind is now fully aware at the back of your head that you are not this person. Like, you don't know if you're even this personality. You don't know if it's just the name that's not yours or if it's everything. But you are completely doubling down on just self-deception, just locking it down. You've completely repressed this.
Good,
so you just
good,
have a really
good.
cool little rad dream about 2 minutes long of you just being like how great you are and thinking about your life and thinking about how sad it would be if you died because you're just such a cool rad character.
This is exactly what I wanted to be thinking in those 2 minutes, so
The
it
android-
panned out perfectly.
The android currently known as Matt Lees has no time for such thoughts. You basically have this horrible burst dream of it's just a nightmare. You've really lost all perception of reality versus you feel like you're now in these sequences that you've watched. You're being attacked by this creature, and the process we talked about of you crunching through this data and extrapolating, you're not getting very far in it. You're getting a bit further. You're getting a better sense of the kind of the claws of these creatures, the feet of these creatures, the limbs, the things on the edge of the blurring. You've now managed to extrapolate a little bit, but that doesn't do anything for the horror of the nightmares that you're being inflicted by at the moment, of you basically being imagined, you being attacked by these things and killed by these things repeatedly over and over again. Whereas Orcsy, Oh, you're gonna have to remind me. What were you thinking about Oxy? It feels like it's been ages now. I've lost my mind.
I was thinking about the processes that might happen to my brain, both physically and mentally, by going into the warp.
You were worried about entering the warp. Yeah. You just feel like yourself is melting. You become fixated on this idea of the fact that your brain might just collapse within the warp, and you just feel yourself just sort of slipping away. And combined with the fears and weirdness you had earlier with the hot cup of tea not gelling, you enter kind of limbo within this time. So it's an incredibly intense 2 minutes of nothing, really. And your final dream, Android Matt, is a dream that you are finally at rest within a cryostasis pod until smashing through the glass, this pixelated, strange creature, the claws at the edge just hammering through. You're unable to move. You're still frozen. You're in this dream, and you can just feel it hacking away at the glass and pulling its way through, until you realize this is no longer a dream, and this is actually what's happening right now. And I think that's probably a nice time to wrap up for this time.
For you.
On a little high note. But if you want to find out what happens in the next part of Mothership: in space, no one can hear you, shut up. Shut up and sit down. First in a very long time live RPG series. Then you can tune in 2 weeks from now. We're going to be, if everyone else involved here is fine with that, I think we could do this not this next Thursday, but the Thursday afterwards. Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Fantastic, and we will continue our little adventure. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching this, and thank you so much again.
Matt, thank you so much for running it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh no, my pleasure. I've been honestly a bit frightened about this for a long time, because as you can see, I've done a lot of weird preparations to try and make it work and be really interesting and cool. But also I was a bit worried I wouldn't do the prep right. But thank you so much. I've wanted for such a long time. I know that both Pip and Ava will know that I've been talking about wanting to do an RPG series on Shut Up and Sit Down now for probably about a year. And weirdly, it took an actual pandemic and a realization that we don't have to be in the same space to do it when we do it. To do it. So thank you so much for taking the time. I had a lot of fun today, and I hope that people really enjoyed it. Also, a couple of shout outs to a couple of things I need to shout out for legal reasons. Some of the background music I'm using is from Sirenscape, which apparently I have to both pay for Sirenscape to be able to do it, but also say, hey, I'm using Sirenscape, you can check it out, probably on sirenscape.com. I also have to put a link of some sort in the description, but I'll do that later. And a shout out again, I didn't end up using them very often. Maybe next time people could ask me to roll dice. It's up to you. I don't mind. Like, if people want to roll their own dice, they can. But a shout out again to Sophie's Dice, because I think they're really quite neat. I like them, and you can get that on Steam. But I think it's better you get it on itch, as is always the way with any PC programs. And I think that's about it. Thank you again to everyone for tuning in, and we will see you in 2 weeks for episode 2 of Mothership. Whatever is this. Is everybody going to be okay? I don't know.
No is probably the answer, right?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.